Indianapolis Colts, and he's going to be one heck of a quarterback.
We've got a great show planned for you. We'll be covering every pick live, every trade. We've already had one trade, the Cleveland Browns trading with the Minnesota Vikings, swapping picks. The Browns moving up to 3, giving up a 4th-round pick, a 5th-round pick, and a 7th-round pick in this draft. We're going to kick it over now to the platform, Aaron Burge and Peter Graff. Well, they'll be breaking down pick by pick, but introduce yourself, guys, and give your thoughts on the draft.
Well, I'm Aaron Berg, alongside Peter Graff. Now, we just saw Andrew Luck get picked. Personally, I think this is a great pick for the Colts. He's a traditional quarterback, a drop back and pass guy, very athletic, 6'4" frame, very good, just your typical quarterback, a real Peyton Manning type. What's your thoughts?
Well, he's definitely not a typical quarterback. This guy has been at Stanford for 3 years, has improved everyone around him. He's a great quarterback, and he's a superstar because you know why? He makes the players around him better, and that's what I like to see in a superstar. He hasn't really had that. I mean, even though his offense, he has 2 offensive linemen going in the 1st round, potentially. His offensive line, middle guys really weren't that good. Never had a wide receiver. His #1 guy was a tight end who might also go in the 1st round. So he's definitely better. He's led them to, you know, national media coverage, bowl games. He's made that program relevant, and that's what I like. His coach is now in the NFL with the 49ers, so he's even made his coach better. I like him better than RG3 just because of the 3 years of consistency, and he makes people better. And that's what we for that, I guess.
Great points from golf. Toss it back to Will.
Good.
Thanks very much, guys. A lot of good, great points there, and like you said, Andrew Luck, one of the most consistent quarterbacks in this draft, other than RG3, who is expected to go to the Washington Redskins in the next pick. 6'4", 235 pounds, ended up with a 670 completion percentage. Really fantastic, as Luck has been a more consistent quarterback throughout the 3 years, and a better pick, might I add, than Washington Redskins. Ended up with 82 touchdowns, only 22 interceptions, and 248 yards per game. So it's really excellent. Colts rebuilding this year, let go of Peyton Manning in the offseason, are definitely trying to restructure and heading in the right direction with the selection of Andrew Luck. Really can build a team around him, a very consistent and pocket center quarterback, and he'll do very well for the Indianapolis Colts in the upcoming season. Second pick isn't quite in yet, but expected to go for Robert Griffin III, quarterback out of Baylor. Recently just won the Heisman Trophy, and he's a heck of a quarterback as well. So we'll switch it over to Will Starnes and Mitch Michaels in the war room.
Yeah, Will, talking now with Will Starnes. We're going into our war room, an innovative concept here. And Will, we got the official draft board here, Andrew Luck's name, the first one up on the list, no surprise there. We have our prospect list as well on this chalkboard. But looking at the order of the drafts, we already have the trade, Will, with the Browns and Vikings. What stands out to you, not only about the order, but who is maybe in a real intriguing position with the flexibility to maybe make some moves?
To me, it looks like the Jacksonville Jaguars look like a team to really be looking to get out of their picks. With a lot of needs at stake, they can use a lot of picks, and maybe looking for a team in the middle of the round, maybe the Jets, the Eagles, the Cowboys, looking to move up, try and get that player that really solidifies their team. I think Jacksonville's the most interesting team left for the first round.
You look at Jacksonville, about 7 down. There's always the possibility that they can trade down, also trade up, but it's going to be who's going to trade out, who's going to try to acquire the most number of picks. The Browns with 2 picks, 22 and 3, interesting as well. That middle ground is interesting. You got Cowboys, Eagles, and Jets, 3 teams that, for the most part, kind of underachieved last year. Right in the middle, a chance to bolster some already talented rosters should be interesting. We're going to be in here all night as well. But let's kick it back to Will Deichley as we talk about some of the quarterbacks in this draft.
Very good points here, guys. And the second pick is in now for the 2012 NFL Draft. We'll switch it over now to Aaron Berg and Peter Graff. Give us some insight.
All right, no surprise. The Washington Redskins, the #2 overall pick that they traded heavily for a lot of picks in the future. They have selected Robert Griffin III from Baylor. What do you think of this young prospect now entering in to the NFL?
I love this guy. He had a lot of success coming out of the Heisman Trophy victory and win. Just a great player, very athletic guy. I compare him to Michael Vick, but a way better passer. he's a Michael Vick type guy. He runs when he needs to. I love those kind of quarterbacks. So he's a guy who can drop back, throw the long ball, or if he needs to scramble and score some touchdowns that way. So he's a really versatile athlete. And that's the kind of guy you want. He's also a guy that the Redskins really need because they've struggled with finding a quarterback. They tried the Donovan McNabb experiment last year. It didn't work. They've had Rex Grossman. And then they've had other draft picks in the past that just haven't panned out. So it will be interesting to see if he can come in right away and dominate as he did at Baylor. But my prediction for now is yes, he can, because he is a leader, and we're going to see that leadership right away, displaying his skills.
Yeah, and you talk about Michael Vick, we'll be seeing him 2 times a year now in the NFC East, along with the Cowboys and the defending Super Bowl champion Giants. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. And now we send it back over to the main desk.
Yeah, welcome back to the main desk. And guys, before we get into the third pick where it really starts heating up in the draft, well, these quarterbacks, Luck and Griffin, are, whether or not they like it, going to be compared their entire career. They're going to parallel each other. What does that mean to each quarterback, and what does that mean in their each individual scenario? Both kind of walking into difficult circumstances.
Well, you look at quarterbacks like Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III, and there's so much hype and so much pressure on them to do well that it's really going to be difficult for them to transition into the professional level of the game. Now, I have no qualms about them being able to do so. Both are very highly intelligent quarterbacks. Luck reminds me of Peyton Manning. Robert Griffin III, almost like a Cam Newton, Michael Vick type of combination. They're very smart. They approach the game in a very methodical but intense way. And going into this, it's going to be interesting to see how they can do that, but they're going to adapt fairly well. And I think that Robert Griffin III and Andrew Luck will become fantastic quarterbacks.
Absolutely. I think with Robert Griffin III's case, he's not facing nearly the pressure that Andrew Luck is, having to go and replace Peyton Manning, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. But he is going into a pressure cooker, a team in Washington that has a lot of prestige but hasn't won recently. They gave up a lot to get him. He's going to have to stay durable. I think that's the biggest key for Robert Griffin III. He's fast. He's more of a pocket passer than Cam Newton, but he isn't very big. He's not very built, so he's going to have to find a way to keep himself protected and not take the hits to the NFL. It's a tougher level. But for Andrew Luck, he's going to have his work cut out for him. I think he's more than capable with his lineage, his dad playing in the NFL as well. But he's going to have his work cut out for him. But like we said, they're Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers. Hopefully not Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf, but their names are going to be interlinked for their entire careers, one way or the other. All right, well, we're getting into the third pick of the draft, and this is where it heats up. We've already said that the Browns and Vikings have made a trade. Browns now get that 3 pick, and for all intents and purposes, it seems like they made that trade to get Trent Richardson. Now, before we break down that fit, Will, do you think that they had to make this deal? Was Tampa Bay a serious threat to trade up, or someone else, because clearly the Vikings weren't going to take Trent Richardson?
Yeah, I really think they needed to make this move. The Browns have a lot they need to accomplish, and they really need to help out Colt McCoy, and the best way to help out your quarterback is get him a good running game. They let Peyton Hillis go in the offseason. He didn't really perform like he did in the past year, and this is really the best way to start over with their young quarterback and just really start rebuilding.
Yeah, they didn't give up that much for the trade, only a 4th, a 5th, and a 7th round pick, but at the same time, for them to make this trade, they had to know that Tampa Bay was in serious play, or somebody, because if they didn't know that, there's no reason to even give up anything, because Minnesota is not going to take a running back. They just gave Adrian Peterson the contract that he has. He might be the best running back in football. But Will Dicey now, you look at the Browns, Trent Richardson, a dynamic player. The only question I have, the only level of concern as a Cleveland native is this too high for any running back? Trent Richardson's a special player, but running backs don't tend to last as long as they normally did, and you're starting to see them come a dime a dozen, at least in their first couple of years.
I don't think it's too early for him. It fits the Browns type of pick that they need. I think he's one of the best positional players in the draft. He's very explosive. He's very strong on the ball, and he's very fast. And the Browns, sort of in a rebuilding year of their own, it would be really great for them to get that powerful running back like this, and it really works out more to the Vikings' favor. Expected to pick Matt Kalil, which is a huge offensive tackle for Adrian Peterson, so it fits for both situations and it works out for everyone.
Well, the pick is in. Before we turn it over to the platform, I'd also like to just point out that Maurice Claiborne, maybe the best blue chip prospect in this entire draft, still on the board. For the Browns to even be considering him with how abysmal they've been on offense, that just shows you what kind of player he is.
Yeah.
He's already getting Darrelle Revis type comparisons already, but the pick is in, and it appears to be something true to form. Justin Blackman's still on the board, Kalil there. Minnesota will pick next. With the pick in, we'll turn it over to Aaron and Peter. Talk a little bit about the Browns' perspectives and lead us right up into the pick.
Well, again, looking at Trent Richardson, when I studied him, I really find him an Adrian Peterson type. He's 5'9", 228. He's just got that strong body, power running back, but a very fast guy. He's got the total package you want to see in a running back. He's fast and strong. The only weakness I see in him is he had a great offensive line in Alabama. I mean, he goes to the NFL, he's not going to have that line with him. And will he be able to do it? It's a major question. Personally, I think he will, because I think his skill will overtake it, but that's a thing that's going to really have to see.
Yeah. The number one thing about this guy is his strength. He was legendary in the Alabama locker room for working out this guy with bench press of 400, man, I'll tell you what. And the thing is with him, it's not just one guy can take him down. He can move past the first guy on defense to move past everybody, and you need multiple guys to take him down. He can also come out of the backfield, catch if you need him to. He can also get a couple of receiving yards here and there. Complete whole package, strong, he's durable, he has an NFL-ready body.
Well, we'll send it to the front desk again to continue with the analysis.
Yeah, the pick is official. Trent Richardson going to the Cleveland Browns. He will be welcome with open arms for a team that hasn't really had a playmaker in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Trent Richardson going to the Browns, and Will Starnes, I'll start with you. He's going to come in and he's going to get a lot of carries right away. What does this addition mean to the Browns as an offense? They like to play the West Coast style. Colt McCoy's there, still not sold, obviously, on him being the long-term guy. Don't have a lot of receivers, but what does it do to shore up, potentially and hopefully, that he is their guy for the future of the running back position?
I think it's a really good fit for him because, like you said, they have the West Coast offense, and that West Coast offense tends to kind of make running backs out of, they might not necessarily be, the Adrian Petersons of the league, but it makes them appear a little better than they really are, and that's really going to help the development of Colt McCoy, who has had his moments in his first 2 years in the league and has showed some promise, which is, I think, why they eventually went with Trent Richardson at this pick. And it just really allows them to fully develop. I'd like to see them add a receiver to kind of give him some options that way, but a running game is a great way to start.
Absolutely. And I would say that the Cleveland Browns, also what this pick tells me, is that obviously they knew that they needed an offensive weapon, but what it also tells me is they weren't sold on Justin Blackman being the top guy. And for whatever reason, Justin Blackman's got a prime career ready to go. But at the same time, if he was going to be that Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson type prospect in the Cleveland Browns' eyes, they would have taken him because I think the need was greater there, even at receiver, with how little their receiving core has produced. But Justin Blackman's still on the board, a good player, clearly the best receiver in his class, but not in that same game-changing breath as a Trent Richardson. This is where the draft really will heat up. Now, it's stayed true to form, so to speak. We've had the Browns trade with the Vikings, but they still picked the same guy, Will Dicey, that we expected them to. The Minnesota Vikings at 4 are on the clock, and they could, for the most part, if they want to trade down again, they could still take Matt Kalil, the tackle. They could even look at Maurice Claiborne or Justin Blackman type. A lot of options here. If you're Minnesota, what do you pinpoint?
Well, I think if you're Minnesota, you've got to go with Matt Kalil. He is the offensive tackle, the best one in this draft. Coming out of USC at 6'7", 295 pounds. A couple months ago, he weighed in around 330. So this guy is a huge offensive tackle. Only allowed eight sacks in the 2011 season, and none of which were allowed particularly by him. So it's just that offensive line for USC which allowed the 8 sacks. And this is an absolutely perfect pick for the Minnesota Vikings if they can pick him up, because it'll give Adrian Peterson some great running room, open up huge holes, and really set up the protection for Christian Ponder to work with.
Right now, I'm going to have to take an opposite stance on this one. as good as that pick would be, and this is a team that has holes. I mean, we got to acknowledge the fact that Green Bay won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The Detroit Lions made the playoffs, they're an up-and-coming team. The Chicago Bears have Jay Cutler, who has Brandon Marshall. In this division, Will Starnes, I would go Maurice Claiborne. I think he's an unbelievable talent. Could be one of the best, maybe the best in the league at some point. But if you look at the receivers that they have to go up against and how depleted their secondary was, I would go Maurice Claiborne.
Yeah, I totally agree. Maurice Claiborne has the potential to be that top 3 receiver or cornerback. In the league. And like you said, you got Greg Jennings on the Packers, you got Brandon Marshall on the Bears, you got Calvin Johnson, probably the best receiver in the whole league on the Lions. You need someone that can go in there and just lock them down, or at least contain them a little bit. So while Matt Kalil would be a nice pickup to help Christian Ponder out, I think there are other tackles that you could get in later rounds that aren't going to be that much worse than Kalil, because Khalil's not that left tackle that we've seen in the past. He's not a Jake Long, he's not a Joe Thomas, he's not that type of tackle. So I agree. I think take Claiborne. He's a better overall prospect, and that's what you got. You got to take the best players.
Intriguing thing about this, guys, is that both positions appear to be deep, so to speak, in the draft. Tackle and cornerback, what they would be looking at. In tackle, you talk about Riley Wright from Iowa, Jonathan Martin from Stanford, Mike Adams from Ohio State. Cornerback has Drake Kirkpatrick from Alabama, Stephon Gilmore from South Carolina, and even Jenkins out of North Alabama, formerly of Florida. So there's a lot that they could look at. But Minnesota does have needs, and Aaron and Pete will kick it over to you guys before the next pick is in. What do you think is the greater need, and what do you think is the greater fit for this team?
Well, my personal opinion, I really see the Vikings needing Justin Blackman. They have a depleted receiving corner, but they still have Percy Harvin. He'd be a great complement alongside Percy Harvin. That's another guy where we've seen the Vikings take receiver early. He's covered in the league, and he's shown that he's NFL ready. Again, Percy Harvin, and he's flourished with that offense. The problem is their quarterback. But I think if you take Justin Blackman, who I think is the best player available on the board, he can be a good complement. His only weakness that I see is he's slow off the ball. But alongside that, he's got great jumping ability. He won the Belenkov Award 2 years in a row as the top collegiate wide receiver in the college. And I would compare him to Anquan Bolden. He's got that body. He's only 6 feet tall, but he can jump, and that's what you need in a receiver.
Well, I disagree. An interesting move that the Vikings did just before the draft, they actually signed Drew Stinson, a Bengals wide receiver free agent. He was big time. If you remember the flip they did over the Arizona quarterback, number 1 play of the year, he'll be suspended 3 games for off the field issues. But you need to protect your first round investment. A lot of people thought, wow, you drafted him really highly in Christian Ponder. He was drafted very early on, a lot earlier than what people thought. You still got Percy Harvin, you got Jerome Simpson playing off each other. The wide receivers, he'll do fine. He'll do fine without a big-time wide receiver like Justin Blackman. They need to protect him. You already got AP, another good catching back. That's why they need Matt Kalil. They need him. He is now a Trojan horse. Everything that you need from him is up front and center. He's a greatest offensive tackle prospect in this draft right now. Absolute need. He will protect not only Christian Ponder, but AP, who had a very serious injury last year, and you need to protect them. And I think this is a number 4 pick. It's a great investment.
I completely agree, and I really think the Vikings are in a good position because they have that option. I think you can't go wrong here because you pick Kalil. He's actually dropped some weight. He came in at 330 a couple years ago, but he's down to 306. Big guy, 6'6" for lineman. He's one of the few players in this draft that is NFL ready, first game in. He slides smoothly. He's a great blindside blocker. He's just a great overall player. Played at USC. I think the only downsides to his game is he stands a little too upright in his positioning, and he needs to get more flexible in that regard. But other than that, he pulls nicely. He does all the textbook things you want a lineman to do. And I think he would really complement the Minnesota offensive line in that way.
And now we send it back to the main guys.
Pick is official. It is Matt Kalil. They went with the sure thing, and in a position that, unlike most others, you look at who the greatest players in the league are. Joe Thomas, Long, from the Miami Dolphins. High draft picks. They've been the all-pro selection the last 2 years. Guys, they went with the sure thing. Matt Kalil will be protecting on the offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings.
I think it's a great pick for them, and like I said, it's a good fit for them. Allows Adrian Peterson to do some explosive runs down the field. Protects Christian Ponder, who they should put a franchise tag on, his young quarterback, and a really good pick. And like you said, went for the sure thing. Don't need to take a gamble here. Finished 4-12 last year, a really terrible year by the Vikings standards. So I'm just going to play it safe, pick the best player available that fits their positional needs. It's a good pick by the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, so now it turns the table to Tampa Bay at 5. But before we get into that, Will Starnes, Minnesota trades down. They get a 4th, a 5th, and a 7th round pick. But was that, I guess, just for nothing? Not in terms of just the picks they acquired, but they still took the same guy that it appeared that they would all along. So I guess maybe the plan was to not have to spend as much money on a contract with Richardson going ahead.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. They do spend a little less money now with him dropping the 4th pick, but they need a lot of help, and they just want to acquire picks, as many as they could, and that's what they did. So I like the move. They got their guy. I disagree with the pick, but if that's their guy, they got the picks and still got their guy. So you can't really argue with the results.
Absolutely. Now it puts Tampa Bay on the clock, and Will Dychley, if there's a no-brainer pick in, as the pick is officially in, I think they're going Claiborne right off the bat. I mean, this is a team that Rondé Barber's getting older. Talib got in a lot of trouble. He doesn't appear to be a factor anymore. This guy could come into a defense tradition of Tampa Bay and really put on a spectacle.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He is the best defensive back in the league, and what you look at, he was able to do in college. Such an explosive player on the defensive side. Not too tall, but has a great jumping ability to get up in the receivers' faces and can really put some defensive pressure for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Picks in. Before we kick it over to the platform, one quick thing, Will Starnes. Maurice Claiborne, a blue chip prospect if there ever was one. Do you think that coming into the league he could be better than what we've seen out of Patrick Peterson, his former teammate, Joe Hayden for the Browns out of Florida, 2 real great young cornerbacks, and possibly even a Darrelle Revis? Could he be in that same breath, if not better?
I think he could. I'm not going to pencil him in quite yet. Obviously he still has a lot to prove. He has to handle a bunch of big-time receivers. He's got the Saints. He's got the Panthers. He's got the Falcons. Those are some good quality teams, and I want to see him go up against the best of the best before I'm ready to just pencil him right in. But I do think he has the potential to be right with all of them. I think from what I've seen, I have him doing a little better than Patrick Peterson his rookie year. But I still want to wait and see.
Absolutely, the pick is in, and it appears we have a trade. We have a trade. Jacksonville has traded up to the number 5 pick, so Tampa Bay gets out and Jacksonville comes up, and I'll kick it over to you guys, Aaron and Peter. There's our first curveball of the night, our first official curveball of the night. Jacksonville is moving up to the number 5 spot.
Although Jacksonville did move up to the number 5 spot, I still think that Morris Claiborne would be a great pick here. They're pretty weak at corner, and Morris Claiborne, I find the only weakness about him is his Wonderling score was very low. He scored a 4 on that, but also, what about that? The people that scored low Wonderling scores, Dan Marino, Vince Young, especially Dan Marino, went on a Hall of Fame career. So it really proves to be, it's not much of a factor there. Also a knock on him is he has lazy technique, but he really can overcome that by just his aggressiveness, and he's a strong corner.
And I believe we have a curveball. I believe Justin Blackman has been selected 5th overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct, and a lot to break down from this move. We'll start with what Tampa Bay did. Ready to not, talk so highly about what they did, trading out of 5 when you need a big-time prospect. But if Jacksonville got up there and got Blackman at 5, that might have been a pretty good deal. They're only dropping down to 7. Now the Rams are on the clock. They could maybe get a Claiborne-type player. Tampa Bay gets out and probably gets some nice pieces, but Jacksonville, if anybody was sold on Justin Blackman, it had to be them with the price that they paid.
Yeah, and being a St. Louis Rams fan, I have to say I'm kind of disappointed that the Blackman was picked just one pick before the St. Louis Rams, but it's a fantastic pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars, giving Blaine Gabbert something really explosive to throw to. Only 6'1", but Justin Blackman's leaping ability in the red zone is just absolutely phenomenal. He's got an arm reach of, I think, 34.5 inches, so his ability to just go up and get pressure on the defensive backs like that is incredible, and it really gives Jacksonville an offensive weapon to really go to.
And Will Starnes, they needed a receiver. They needed somebody to throw the ball to. They've been weak there for years. They clearly thought that Blackman wouldn't make it to them at 7, otherwise it wouldn't have made the deal. Do you think, I know it's hard to say, did Jacksonville get a little overzealous making sure they got Blackman, or was it a move that was a requirement they needed to compete?
Well, I think it all depends on what they really got from, what else they had to trade for that pick, because I don't have those details with me right now. But assuming that they didn't have to give up too much, I think that's a really good pickup, because they were the worst passing team in the league last year. And Gabbert just got thrown into the wolves, really. I mean, now they give him a receiver to work with, and he's got Maurice Jones-Drew, proven one of the best running backs in the league. I think that's a very good move, and a surprising move at that.
Big debate question that I'll pose to you guys is the difference between Justin Blackman and Michael Floyd, Kendall Wright, Stephen Hill, is it that great that they had to make this move, or would it have been wiser to trade down, get a guy like Floyd, get a guy like Wright later in the first round?
I think it would have been better if they would have gone with Morris Claiborne. I think he's the overall better player in the draft still at the position, but Blackman's still a good player. Defensively, they do struggle a lot, but like you said, well, they were the worst passing team in the league last year, so either way, it works out for them very nicely. In my opinion, I would have gone with Morris Claiborne at the defensive back position, though.
If they needed a receiver, I think this is the guy. I think there is that gap between the other receivers and him. And depending on what they gave up, obviously, Will said we don't know the details. But they had to make this deal to improve their offense, and they got it done. So a good deal by Jacksonville. We'll see what Tampa Bay gets as well. The 6th pick of the draft appears to be in. And Aaron and Peter will let you guys weigh in on Blackman and Jacksonville and also lead us in to the next pick in this draft.
I really like Blackman going to Jacksonville. Like you guys said, he's a great compliment to Gabbert. If they decide to go with Gabbert as a quarterback, they might eventually this season or even tonight to try to bolster that quarterback position and get a better guy than Gabbert. But Gabbert's been all right, and I just think he's really going to be better with an elite receiver like Justin Blackman. Like we went over, he's an Anquan Bolton type player. Great jumping ability. Great player.
And now we're sending you back with a live trade-breaking info.
It wouldn't be the NFL draft without the Dallas Cowboys making some noise. They've made a trade. The St. Louis Rams have traded their 6th pick to the Dallas Cowboys, moving all the way up to number 6. Wow, you got to catch your breath on this one. Jerry Jones gets his way all the way up to 6. We don't know exactly what they gave up, but I would imagine Maurice Claiborne is probably going to be rocking the star on his helmet this year. Trading up to get a cornerback, Terrence Newman no longer on the team, a young secondary as is. Jerry Jones making some noise. Your thoughts, guys, on this remarkable blockbuster trade?
Well, this is a monumental trade, and the Rams, I would hope it would have gotten something huge for this trade. And what's to be expected was if this trade wouldn't have happened, the Rams would have picked up Morris Claiborne. But now that the trade has happened, Jerry Jones most likely going to pick him up. And this leaves a little bit of room for discussion as to where the St. Louis Rams now are going to go from here. And if it is true, if the Cowboys do select Morris Claiborne, I think it's a very daring trade by Jerry Jones and for the Rams to actually agree with it, since Justin Blackman is off the board now. Morris Claiborne, the best player overall, still left. I don't know about this one for the Rams. I think they might have messed this one up again, but we'll see. We'll definitely see.
Pick being made right now. It is Maurice Claiborne going to the Dallas Cowboys. And I'll pose this question before we kick it over to the platform. Will Starnes, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, and now the Rams all kind of passed on a guy that I think could be, when it's all said and done, the best player long term in this draft. Is there any reason or any explanation for why 3 consecutive teams decide to snub him like this?
I can't really put a word on it. I like Claiborne as the one of the top 3 probably prospects in this draft. I really don't. I mean, the Rams did sign a nice cornerback in the offseason. Cortland Finnegan, yeah, from the Tennessee Titans. So I understand that cornerback's not really a need for them, but as for the other ones, I don't really understand that at all. The Jaguars, they had a decent defense last year, but they could really use help at the cornerback position. And Tampa Bay, with the aging Rondé Barber, they really need a cornerback. Yeah. I really don't understand it.
One thing I'll say before we turn it over to Aaron and Peter, Cortland Finnegan's a nice cornerback, but there's not too many shutdowns, and they think this guy had shutdown ability. Jerry Jones realized that he valued it enough to trade all the way up. But Peter, a Dallas native, and Aaron, your thoughts on this blockbuster trade?
Well, I am just absolutely shocked that the Cowboys did something like this. I heard rumors that they might make a move for Jacksonville, but I didn't think they actually did. But I didn't think Morris Claiborne would be on the spot right now. This is a absolutely great pick. I heard they were going to try to do something with Mark Barron, but if they could get Morris Claiborne, they would go for it, and they went for the kill shot. Absolutely love the pick. If he will complement the newly acquired Brandon Carr from Kansas City so well, they have just bolstered a huge weakness on their defensive end. More than likely, they won't have a second-round pick, maybe even a third-round pick. So they're giving up a lot for this guy, but I absolutely love it. He was part of a great defense last year in the SEC, LSU type guy, shut down cornerback, and now that defense has so much good secondary ability, and I absolutely love this pick.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, I heard that some analysts said Cowboys are falling off, and that Tony Romo is the one that's keeping hanging on. Well, not anymore. Morris Claiborne is going to come in and just dominate. He's a great complement to the offense. He might even be the leader in the offense, even as a rookie. And like we said, just going over his skills one more time, I mean, Jim Thorpe Award winner, awarded to the best defensive back in college football last year. And I find him a Champ Bailey type. He's just that aggressive corner. He'll hit you in the mouth, and he's not a finesse corner type. He's a great tackler and just a great all-around player. So a great compliment to the Dallas Cowboys.
Absolutely. And now we send it back over to the main desk for more news.
Absolutely monumental trade here again as the Dallas Cowboys do trade with the St. Louis Rams to pick up Morris Claiborne in the 2012 NFL Draft. We're going to go over now to the War Room with Mitch Michaels and Will Starnes. I'm going to break down who's left, who's available, and who's the best to pick.
It is a war room, let me tell you. A lot of trades being made, a lot of moves being made as well. Both teams, every team in this draft has got something to prove, and they're laying it all on the line. As well as we look at our big board here, the Colts and Redskins, they the Browns trade up, get Trent Richardson. The trade started with Peter that they would. Jacksonville comes in there to take Justin Blackman, the Cowboys with Claiborne. Tampa Bay will have that 7th pick in the draft. Tampa Bay will have that 7th pick in the draft. The Dolphins at the number 8 pick. And now is where you start to get into the reaches of the draft. Some players are gone. Some things are looking a little thin. What's the next big pick that's going to be kind of maybe a monumental type trade situation?
I'm looking anywhere in this middle region. You know, a lot of these teams getting back. A lot of the Rams, especially the Rams, they just moved out of their pick. They went to 14 when the Cowboys are. But you have to remember all the trades they've made lately. They made a trade with the Redskins at number 2 pick. They got a ton of picks there. I'm assuming got a bunch of picks for this spot. If they see Floyd, receiver is a big need for them. If they want Floyd, maybe watch them to trade a few of those picks and come right back up in here and try and grab that wide receiver.
Yeah, if the Rams went down to 14, which we assume they did, we don't have the information in front of us right now. They could still get a receiver of solid nature. They could still get something big, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to start making some moves because this is a team that was a pretty poor team, the second worst team in the league. They're going to have to make, some adjustments there. As we look at our prospect board, the other side of our board here is our prospects. We talked about receiver position. We talked about the tackle position. Tackle might be one of the strongest. Kalil is gone. Riley Reiff, a name that's going to come out soon. Cordy Glenn as well. But it could be that time in the draft we start getting the interior linemen. And, that's a position that's deep. It's strong. A lot of hybrids this year.
Yeah, it's a very interesting draft with offensive lines. Really, in general, you got a lot at the tackle, like you said, a lot of quality guard position, and we're pretty thin in center. But with tackle being that main concern for these teams, this is a year where they can really bolster their line.
Absolutely. As we mentioned, there's some positions that are thinner than others. We might not see. It doesn't look like we'll see another running back in the first round of this draft. That would kind of be a shock. Receiver, anyone from 2 to 4, maybe in this draft in the first round. But I agree with you there. Offense or outside linebacker, defensive end, defensive tackle, they're going to start flying off the board. We'll go back to Will Deichley, where we'll be joining him shortly in the main studio.
The pick is in now. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock, and the pick is just about coming in. And you look at some team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you expect him to go with maybe somebody on the defensive side like Melvin Ingram. I can't see them going to any type of quarterback situation, but the pick is in. So we're going to switch it out over to Aaron Berg and Peter Graff. Lead us up into the pick and give us your thoughts.
For Tampa Bay, I really feel like they need to redo this aging offense. Like, they have Rondé Barber, who's still a great player. He's still pretty elite, but he's very old, and they really need to replace him. They need to start looking at some other players, potentially at the defensive line. You have Fletcher Cox still out there, and other players, maybe a safety to replace Barber as he gets closer to retirement. What are your thoughts?
Well, at this point right now, they've rejuvenated their offense in the offseason. Their big free agent acquisition was Vincent Jackson, a weapon for Josh Freeman to have. They need to work on the defense. But we do have news that the pick is in, so we're sending it back over to the main desk.
The pick is in. Tampa Bay going with the reach, taking Mark Barron, strong safety from Alabama. He was a guy that was projected to go in the middle of the first round, the only safety that was a surefire first-round pick, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers draft him. I got to scratch my head a little bit at this. They addressed the secondary when they passed on Maurice Claiborne and drafted safety, which not only is Claiborne the superior prospect, Will Deichley, but it's also a greater need for Tampa Bay, I would say, corner over safety.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I don't know why they went with this pick. A little bit of an unknown player. Was expected to more, like you said, go into the middle of the first round. I'm surprised that they didn't go with Melvin Ingram as well, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. I thought they would have suited their defensive needs a little bit more. And by passing on Maurice Claiborne now and going with a player like this, a bit surprising, and you got to scratch your head about this.
Yeah, and Will Starnes, the Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Jets, middle of the draft, they were all hoping to have a chance to draft him. He doesn't even make it to double digits. That's going to throw them in limbo as well. But is the positional, is that an issue? Is that why they decided to go with a safety here? Is it that great of a need for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I'm with you guys. I'm scratching my head on this one a little bit. Just, Claiborne would have fit in so perfectly with their team. Claiborne, young, could have gotten time, wouldn't have had to cover the real great receivers yet. Could have given him a year, and then he could have gotten, more acclimated to the NFL, and then really taken the NFL by storm. I mean, safety is a need for them, but it really doesn't make sense to me with cornerback being their biggest need, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mark Barron goes as a safety. He will go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now things will once again get interesting. Miami Dolphins are on the clock. Peter and Aaron, this appears to be the destination for Ryan Tannehill. I'll let you guys talk about who the Dolphins are keying on, if it is going to be a quarterback, and then we'll go into further detail. But do you guys think that Tannehill will be going to the Miami Dolphins, and is he worthy of the 8th overall selection?
I believe he is, but I absolutely do not think he's worthy. I think Brandon Weeden is a better prospect, even though he is older. Tannehill, with the offense and defense of Texas A&M, they blew lots of leads in the second half and fourth quarters of games. In their last year in the Big 12, very disappointing year for them. They were ranked at one point. They were actually ranked throughout several times, but they kept pulling leads to Arkansas, to Texas, to teams like that. And they were decent. I mean, they were decent teams, but you still can't be blowing leads like that in college sports. I don't like Tannehill at 8. I understand that he needs years and years for them to develop, but who's he developing behind? David Garrard, Matt Moore. Those aren't guys I want my future prospect to be around. I would go with Brandon Weeden and play him right now.
thing is with the Dolphins, it's a very risky pick because he's a guy who can come in for Tannehill, can come into the NFL and dominate right away, or he could come in as Chad Henne did with the Dolphins, and so dominant in college was Chad Henne, and then he comes to the Dolphins and just doesn't really pan out like they thought. And the Dolphins they don't have that great a receiving core, so he doesn't have much to throw to. Tannehill, as skilled as he is, he really doesn't have much to work with really that whole team as a whole. So it's going to be tough for him. He's going to have his work cut out for him. So he really needs to rely on his skills right away. I think in a couple of years he might be good for that team, but he's not going to come in and make an immediate impact. And I really think that they're putting way too much pressure on him to expect him to do that.
Yeah, this is now a development pick. I feel like at 8 you don't bring in someone so you can develop them for a couple of years. That's a second or third round pick. Yeah. You are wasting your 8th round pick on a guy who needs time. This offense has traded away Brandon Marshall, their best offensive weapon. You know, you have Reggie Bush in the backfield, along with their young couple of running back prospects. But who's their wide receiving core? You know, Brian Hartline. That's the only person I can name on the team. So they should have spent it on a guy like Michael Floyd, Kendall Wright. That's where they need to go, or even replace their retiring quarterback in Jason Taylor. But hey, you know, they know what's best for them.
Well, the interesting thing here is we might see Bush catching more. We might see him used more as a receiver and try to ease Tannehill, if they select him, into the QB position, doing more shorter passes, and because they really don't have a lot of deep threats, like you said, and so they might ease him in using their running backs. Bush mostly, who is a great receiving running back, I might add. But it'll be interesting, so we'll send it back to the desk to see what's going on there.
Pick is official. Ryan Tannehill is a Miami Dolphin. They take him 8th overall, and we could debate this again. And the bottom line here is, from the Dolphins' perspective, they buy into the fact, Will, that he's worthy of an 8th overall pick, and also they're desperate. And this is a desperation pick because you could have got Brandon Weeden, an older quarterback, later. You could have got a guy like Brock Osweiler and Kirk Cousins in the 2nd or 3rd rounds. They wanted somebody that's going to come in and compete for the job. A desperation pick, if there ever was one, for the Miami Dolphins.
Well, this is a pick that's definitely been projected for a while now, and it's a good pick for the Miami Dolphins. Bill Parcells structuring this organization into the right direction with Ryan Tannehill, quarterback out of Texas A&M. Had a good combine and a good selection, so I think this is a good pick and moving in the right direction for the Miami Dolphins.
Will Starnes, I got to take the other road on this one with Ryan Tannehill. I don't think that he's worthy of the 8th overall pick. I think that it was desperation, as I said. Did he, as I believe, and so many others in the past, was he a result of some pre-draft hype? Because right when the season ended, this was a 2nd-round pick. The combine, arm strength, and throwing drills, he moves all the way up to 8th. I see some bad signs for him moving up, like some of those in the past have.
Well, the one thing you have to realize with the Dolphins is they just hired Mike Sherman as their offensive coordinator. That was his coach at Texas A&M. So he knows Tannehill. He knows he's not ready for the NFL right now. I don't believe that you'll see Tannehill play a snap on offense this year. You know, they just signed David Garrard. Him and Matt Moore are going to be competing for that job. So I like the pick as what I think he can be. You know, whether you think that's worthy of an 8th overall pick, that's where you debate it. But if he's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback in 5 years, I don't think you can really argue with it. I would have liked to see them go Michael Floyd, you know, and get a receiver, right, and then, like you said, Weeden later.
It's a high pick for a guy that, as you said, is probably not going to even be a factor in competing for the starting job. 8th overall, the Dolphins take Ryan Tannehill. We're moving along now to the 9th pick, the Carolina Panthers on the clock. The pick is in, and I think this is where, as we mentioned, Will, you're going to start to see defensive ends, nose tackles, outside linebackers flying off the board. The deepest area of the draft in the 1st round is the interior line, along with those hybrid rushers, and that picks in. Who do you like, Will Dychley, Carolina taking at the number 9 selection?
Well, I have to see them taking maybe Melvin Ingram, defensive end out of South Carolina. He's a 6'1", 264 player, very, very strong, would fit their needs very well, or go along with Fletcher Cox, who a lot of mock drafts have taken on. He's also a very strong player, so like you said, though, after the first 2 picks of the NFL draft, it's sort of chaos in between, and now when you're moving along with the 9th, 10th, and so on picks, it's going to be a lot of defensive players, and it's really going to test to see if the teams did their homework, and this is where I think some of your sleepers are going to come from.
And for Carolina, they find themselves in a good position. Melvin Ingram was written off a lot of boards, not projected to go past Jacksonville at number 7. Some things change into that factor. He's on the board, Fletcher Cox as well. The picks in, we'll let Aaron and Peter introduce that and give their thoughts up until their pick, the Carolina Panthers.
Well, I think you look at the Carolina Panthers, and Cam Newton, they have a very bright future with him. He's a great single player, but not so much a team player, because he had a great season, but they still didn't win a lot of games. But I think a year with him under their belt, I think they're just great, for next year in a great position. I really see them picking Fletcher Cox in this position, a big D tackle from Mississippi State, just a good player to have on your roster, and really hold down that D line for the Carolina Panthers.
They need to build defense. They lost games late because their defense and special teams failed them. This is the first step in the right direction for them. Work on that defense. There was injuries last year with the defense. Some of their big players on the defensive end were hurt early on in the season, training camp, things like that. But working on that defense, giving Cam that ability to take some pressure off his shoulders. This guy is right now putting the team on his back. They have a great run game. Their offense is good. Work on the defense. Get picks that are defensive. That's what they need to do. No offensive picks this year for Carolina. Just get all defense. Work on the defense. Let Cam go ham, as I say.
Cam go ham. Good points.
And we're back here in the war room. The 9th pick is in. A bit of a surprise yet again. The Carolina Panthers selecting inside linebacker out of Boston College, Luke Kuechly. And, well, this is a little bit of a shocker. Now, they obviously addressed a need. They felt inside linebacker was more valuable to them than outside linebacker and interior line. But I also got a sense here that that position, one of our thinnest positions in the draft in terms of depth at the first-round level, they might have, taken him out of necessity, that he is one of the elite players, of the few elite players at that position.
I really like Luke Kuechly. I think he's one of the better overall players, most complete players in this draft. I mean, in my mind, he was a top 10 caliber player. I think this is a very good fit for him. Carolina, John Beeson just coming off an injury. You don't really know what you're going to get out of him. Adding another linebacker, not going to do them any problems. I really like the pick with Luke Kuechly.
Certainly. And as we look at this big board, and now Buffalo being on the clock, we're looking at some of the later teams in the draft, and this comes up every year. But how do the trades early on, the trades, prospects going higher or lower, how does that affect the scenarios that each team has to play in? You get the sense that they have to have about 5 or 6 different scenarios depending on what does happen, because you don't control your own destiny until that pick is up and you're on the clock.
Yeah, and I think this is just where these teams just really need to trust their own draft grades. You don't want to reach. You don't want to be looking at the position necessarily. You just want to look who is the best overall football player, because at the end of the day, what's going to win you football games is having the best football players on the field. So, some of the guys that they want might come off, but at the end, they just got to go grade by grade who was the best.
And certainly you can't write off players that you assume will be gone. You have to do a thorough draft grade top to bottom, because who knows? In the case of Maurice Claiborne going to the Cowboys, he's there. Mark Barron going as high, and now some players like Melvin Ingram still on the board, Fletcher Cox as well. So Boston College, Luke Kuechly goes at number 9 to the Panthers. Bills are on the clock. We'll kick it back to the main studio with Will Deichley.
Well, the pick is in now for the Carolina Panthers. They go with inside linebacker Luke Kuechly out of Boston College. Definitely a surprising pick, is they do pass on Mark Ingram and Fletcher Cox. We'll send it over now to Peter and Aaron and give us their insight on this pick.
Well, I like this pick. This is the first inside linebacker, actually first linebacker drafted out of Boston College ever, so he must be a special talent. This guy, strong, good size for his position. I like his very active hands, as you see right here. Smart, cerebral guy. That's what you need. That's what they need for the Bills. The Bills have just been ramping up their defense, getting Super Mario, guys like that, the big free agent fishes. for their defense, which is what they need. They're a team on the rise, and this is a good pick for them.
Yeah, very, very good pick. You look at him, his vision is terrific. Good reads, very strong, as you can see. Just a great player to have in your linebacker corner, and very dominant. Very, very dominant. Another leader. You see these leaders being taken by the team, and guy who can lead the defense and even be a Ray Lewis type player. So now we'll send it back to the desk with Mitch Nichols and Ashley.
Quick selection by the Buffalo Bills, and maybe a bit of a reach that will be debated. The Buffalo Bills going cornerback Stephon Gilmore out of South Carolina, the second cornerback taken in the draft, only 4 spots away from Maurice Claiborne. Well, they go cornerback, and secondary might not have been a pressing issue, but there was a hole there. They look to plug it with a really talented cornerback.
Yeah, he is definitely a talented quarterback. Junior out of South Carolina, sits at 6'1", 190 pounds. Ran a 4.44 in the 40-yard dash at the combine. Pretty impressive for cornerback standards, and I think it fits their needs fairly well. But I'm not really sure that they should have gone with it at the moment. I don't think deep coverage in the safeties or the cornerback was a pressing issue at the moment. But an interesting pick, and they really wasted no time with it as well.
Certainly, it's almost as if they knew that was their guy all along. Well, we're going to take a quick break. An hour into our coverage, we're just getting warmed up. Kansas City Chiefs are on the clock at number 11. Stay with us on SLU-TV's coverage of the NFL Draft.
Father Heiberger.
Yes.
It's that camera, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because
We're rotating
somebody,
a lot, right?
yeah, somebody keeps motioning that it's this camera. I'm
No,
like, wait,
just-
and you're like, no, it's
Just
that
look,
one.
just look at the monitor and see
I know,
where
I'm
it is.
trying to look, and it's like,
Yeah.
We're trying to change this look a
crap.
little bit.
we're not live, are we?
Will?
The images from Haiti are heartbreaking. Homes, hospitals, and schools destroyed. Families searching for loved ones. Parents trying to feed their children. But we can all do something. We can help the American Red Cross as it delivers the food, water, and medicine that can save lives. Donate $10 by texting Haiti to 90999.
Welcome back to SLU Sports and SLU-TV's coverage of the 2012 NFL Draft. I'm Mitch Michaels here at the desk with Will Deichley and Will Starnes. The Kansas City Chiefs make the 11th selection in the draft, and an interesting one to say the least, taking defensive tackle Dontari Poe, ranked third in his position. He's the first interior defensive lineman taken, and he's the first taken. He's a project player, 6'4", 346 pounds. An interesting selection, to say the least.
Definitely, Mitch. And a player like Poe, expected to go at number 25, actually. But to go this early to the Kansas City Chiefs, they really must have seen something in him that other teams weren't willing to take a gamble on. I'm still not certain as why Melvin Ingram hasn't gone as far as the defensive player. He's the better overall player. Definitely going to be a work in progress for Dontari Poe. An interesting pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. And see where they take this one.
Yeah, and Will Starnes, if you look at just this position, Fletcher Cox, Michael Brockers, two defensive tackles that played at better conferences, played better competition, had a longer track record, but Kansas City elects to go with a project-type player that may have a better upside, but is certainly a bigger risk.
Yeah, I really don't like this pick. Dontari Poe can really get away with just bullying the people in his conference. He's playing for Memphis. I believe this Conference USA football that's not even close to stellar competition. I mean, he can just run over these people. He hasn't really had to develop any moves to beat blocks. No block shedding moves at all. I really don't like that pick. Fletcher Cox out of Mississippi State going up against the best of the best. Really a much better pick in my opinion.
We have a trade to digest here as well. The Philadelphia Eagles have traded up with the Seattle Seahawks. They now have the 12th pick in the first round, previously at 15. So they make a trade up. We'll go to the war room with Aaron Burge and Peter Graff. Another trade to discuss. Philadelphia moving up. The NFC East is really making some moves here in this draft.
We are back in the war room. Peter, first of all, what are your thoughts on the Dontari Poe pick?
Dontari Poe. He was a combine freak this year. He absolutely put up some crazy stats for his height and weight, and definitely for his position. It was interesting that they didn't go with Fletcher or Brox. Playing in a bigger conference, better one. But hey, who cares? It's on to the next pick. Seattle, interesting pick here that they switch about 2 or 3 spots to the Eagles. Another fella. They're making moves because Cowboys saw what the Redskins did. Eagles seeing what the Cowboys did. Everyone in this conference is making a move, and this is the conference where they can be. They might actually go with a Fletcher Cox, so they're probably very happy that they've seen that. They also, I've heard, Quentin Coples, because their defensive, because the middle of their defense, last year they packed up their front and the very back of their defense, but their middle, terrible. They had terrible run defense, and this is the pick that they need to go with.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Fletcher Cox, to still be on the board at this point, you need to take him. Best player in the draft available right now, especially a need for their aging defensive tackles for the Eagles. I really think he's the guy to go with. I think a good choice, also, I agree, Quentin Coples, always a good choice at defensive end, but right now for the Eagles, Fletcher Cox is the guy to go with. And also, I love that they're trading up, emulating what the Cowboys did. I think it's a good move. They're the team that very talented, but they need to get better in a hurry, get back on that winning tradition that they had a couple years ago, and get back on pace. Yeah. So, good move by them.
Build around Michael Vick, LeSean McCoy, and that great defense that they have in the secondary and up front. And we send it back to the main desk from the war room.
And looking at the Philadelphia Eagles trading up, guys, you get the sense that they saw a player, we don't know who that is yet, that's there that they didn't expect to be there. They traded up 3. They're going after somebody. You don't trade that little in the draft, only a couple spots, unless you have a specific guy in mind. Best guesses as to who it is?
I think they're going to have to go with their defensive side. Maybe Melvin Ingram or maybe Fletcher Cox. It depends on how what they're more leaning towards. But I think it's got to be the defensive side. They don't need too many weapons on the offensive side. Maybe an offensive tackle or maybe something like that. But I can't see him going too much offense. I think it's going to be defense.
Yeah, I'd guess it's Fletcher Cox, Will Starnes, but Ingram wouldn't surprise me either. They were abysmal against the run. Both those guys can help it out. I don't see the need for tackle. I do see a need for tackle with this team, but the prospects don't appear to be top 15 yet. There's a lot of later round tackles that they could get, and I'm with you, Will. I think it's going to be an interior defensive lineman.
Yeah, I like Fletcher Cox in this situation. Melvin Ingram, more of a pass rusher type player. The Eagles have plenty of that, led the league in sacks. So Fletcher Cox really sure up that run defense would really do them just a lot of good. They clearly were not expecting him to get this far, and when he did, they just jumped on the opportunity to get him.
Appears to be. Now, as we mentioned, this is a very deep position in the draft. With Cox still on the board, Poe gets taken, Brocker's still there. We also got guys like Gerald Worthy who are still there. Devin Still as well. And those tackles are very, deep position. But I'll say this, for teams like Philadelphia, and we got Dallas to talk about as well, and the Jets, they didn't make the playoffs, but a lot of people thought they should have. And these guys could get a team, could get one player that could put them over the top, as opposed to maybe the top 10, where there's greater players, but they're ways away. You get into that teen range, these are teams that are close. These are teams that should have made it in the past and in the future are one great draft pick away from getting over the hump.
Yeah, definitely. A disappointing season for the Philadelphia Eagles last season, and they definitely want to get back to their grinded out, hard-nosed defenses. And they didn't sit too well in the defensive side last season, so they are potentially going with a defensive pick here. We're not entirely sure, and the pick is in just moments ago, and it is defensive end Fletcher Cox. A great pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think, Mitch?
I think it's a great pick too. The one game that stood out the most, if you're an Eagle fan that has a sour taste in your mouth, is when the Oakland Raiders, of all teams, just ran it all over them. And that was maybe Philadelphia's best offensive performance of the season. They scored 35 points that game, let it go to waste because they could not stop the run. You need to be able to stop the run in this division. The Giants like to run the football. It gets cold in the winter, as Dallas can run it as well. I think what it's going to come down to, though, is can he come in and play right away? I believe that he can. I like this pick. We'll go to the war room now with Aaron and Peter to weigh in on another big move by an NFC East team to get a valuable quality player.
I think Fletcher Cox, like we said before, is a steal at this point for the Eagles. Great pick, well off the line as we talked about. I think the interesting thing now, as the Cardinals on the clock, who do they go with at this point? They're a team that, as quarterback struggles, the really only superstar, great player is Larry Fitzgerald. What do they do at this point?
Well, at this point, this is what they do. They've actually already had an endorsement from one of their superstars, Larry Fitzgerald, saying, hey, get this guy. And you know who they're going to get? Michael Floyd out of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, representing that great school spirit that they have, because that's what they need. Someone opposite of Larry Fitzgerald to take that pressure off. They lost Anquan Boldin a season or two ago, so they need another guy that can take some pressure off of Larry Fitzgerald, and at the same time, give him a little something extra, get a little extra looks his way, because sometimes you got to double team the beast that is Fitzgerald.
I completely agree. I really think that Michael Floyd, at this point in the draft, standing at 13, he's a complete steal, just great hands, and a guy to really complement Fitzgerald. And just an awesome pick if they can pull this off for the Cardinals. So hopefully they can. I'll send it back to you guys.
And we're back at the front desk, and like those guys said, Michael Floyd is an incredible option at this point in the draft. But I'll throw a name out there, a guy that probably everyone else thought should have been drafted by now. Two names, really. Melvin Ingram is one. But Riley Reiff, the tackle out of Iowa, was a top 10 pick by most mock drafts. He slips all the way down. And now at this point, Floyd is an enticing prospect to pair him with Fitzgerald. But is there greater temptation now, Will, to go after a tackle that can protect Kevin Cobb or a pass rusher that both probably should have been gone several picks ago?
Well, I think they should go with the offensive tackle. I think Riley Reiff would be the correct pick with them. The NFC West, not too competitive division, but it's very physical, so you got to be able to run really hard-nosed in there. And I think that's a good pick. Whether he'll be on form right away, that's yet to be determined. But it's definitely going to be a good pick for them, and try and solidify that and try and protect Kevin Cobb.
And Will Starnes, as we look at needs and also competition, how much does who they're playing against, factor into what they take? Meaning, I'll give you an example, Reiff, a great offensive tackle prospect, playing in the NFC West. Aldon Smith out of Missouri had a phenomenal rookie campaign last year as a pass rusher. Does that factor into whether they draft a tackle that can protect Kevin Cobb?
I think it is a factor, but I don't think that's the deciding factor. In the end, the Cardinals, they had a strong finish but still have a lot of needs. And with that many needs on that team, I believe they just need to go with the best overall player, which I believe is Melvin Ingram. Just get the best player, build up your team that way. They got a lot of aging, good players on defense, so they could use a little youth there. The offensive line, wasn't good, but it also wasn't bad. There's guys to take later. And
interestingly or not, this is where teams tend to trade down when they have multiple options like this. Arizona could be in play to trade down. We're not sure if that's going to be official. Doesn't look likely. But you got to take into account that they have several players that could help them. If they trade down a couple spots to a team that's more desperate, they could still end up with one of them. In this position, you would like to trade down almost all the time unless, Will Dicey, for a fact that one guy stands out head and shoulders above the rest. Because any one of them could help. If they're sold on one, though, they got to make the pick.
Definitely, and with these trades coming in and out, it's really interesting, and it'll really show if they've done their homework and they see that one player stands out more than the other. Well, let's go after him, or let's forego this particular pick that we originally had, since the way that things have been going, and go with this one. And it's really the NFC West. It's on tap now as the Seattle Seahawks made the trade. Now Arizona Cardinals are on the clock now, and the Rams coming up as well. It's really going to define where this division goes, and be interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah, absolutely. Pick is in. We're going to wait momentarily for that. Just recapping what's already taken place today. In the draft, Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, no surprises there, 1 and 2. The Browns trade up with the Minnesota Vikings, get the 3 pick, select Trent Richardson. Vikings at 4, take Matt Kalil. The number 5 pick was another move there as well. In that trade, Justin Blackman going to Jacksonville. They trade up with him. The Cowboys trade up with the Rams, get Maurice Claiborne. Those were the top 6. We've seen some in and outs through them, but the big 6 hold true to form. Those were the guys that were expected to be taken in those spots, and they were. We're now waiting on Arizona number 13. A big pick coming up, determining who can help out the Arizona Cardinals the most on what side of the ball. And after Arizona, that does when it gets dicey. Number 14, the Rams will be up, followed by Seattle, and then the New York Jets. So Roger Goodell comes ready to make the pick. We will cut it to the war room right now, and actually we'll hold on 1 second as the pick is momentarily coming in.
They pick Michael Floyd, the wide receiver. This is an interesting pick. It offsets, I guess, sort of Larry Fitzgerald and gives Kevin Cobb something to throw to. But I really would have liked to see the Arizona Cardinals go with something on the offensive side, on the offensive tackle side, should I say, and really protect Kevin Cobb and open up the lanes for those running backs to get through. But certainly interesting pick by the Arizona Cardinals going with the wide receiver, Michael Floyd.
And one thing with Michael Floyd is that he had question marks, he had some character issues. He will learn from one of the best on and off the field in Larry Fitzgerald. Couldn't have asked for a better setup for him coming into the league. Not going to be called on to be the number 1. They have a firmly established one in that, but can learn from a great guy on and off the field. We'll kick it over to the war room. Aaron Burge, Peter Graff, and now joined by Willie McKenna.
And we're back in the war room. Now joined Peter Graff, Aaron Burge, now joined by Willie McKenna. And guys, what do you think of the Cardinals pick taking Michael Floyd at 13?
Well, honestly, outside of the top 10, I don't think a lot of us know a whole ton about these guys, but I can tell you a little bit about the NFC West, and that being the division that the Rams, and obviously the division here in St. Louis, the most of us watch. And the Arizona Cardinals have not been one of the better teams in that NFC West in the past couple years. Last season wasn't too bad of a season, but they've got some really good offensive weapons, especially in Larry Fitzgerald and Tim Hightower. Right now, they're in a little bit of a quarterback search as well, though. So I look at the Cardinals to maybe come out and contend a little bit this year. And with a good first-round pick here, I think that they could be a definite threat in the NFC West.
Peter.
Oh, absolutely. I love Michael Floyd. He already has the endorsement of Larry Fitzgerald. Adds that weapon to whoever the quarterback of the Cardinals could be Kevin Kolb, John Skelton, a little bit of controversy there, but that's irrelevant. He does have the character issues, but there's not much to worry about if the guy you're going to be backing up or essentially playing next to is Larry Fitzgerald, grade A character guy, great morale guy. He's a guy that can definitely shape him in the right direction. But I like Michael Floyd. He's the leader in pretty much every major statistical category for a wide receiver in Notre Dame history ever. Probably one of the best that's ever been produced. So I definitely like the pick. It was not a shock to me at all. I expected this pick, but I like it. But, wide receivers coming off the board like that. So, you got Kendall Wright, Stephen Hill, Ruben Randall. We'll see who falls and where next.
Well, you bring up the character issues here, Michael Floyd. I mean, the thing is, he's a Notre Dame guy and having character issues, but going into the NFL, he's going to get set straight. They're not going to let him get away with what he did in the past. But also, going to a team with Larry Fitzgerald, one of the classiest guys in the NFL, is a perfect fit for him. I really see Fitzgerald taking him under his wing, showing him the ropes, maybe even teaching him how to act a little bit and really settling down those character issues. So I really don't see that as a major factor for him in the NFL. I think his talent is going to outshine a lot of other receivers and some that we've seen picked thus far.
I definitely see this being a win-lose right now for the Arizona Cardinals. I think it really could go one of two ways. I think it could go the way that you talked about. Larry Fitzgerald could come in there, really put him under his wing, and he could really straighten his life out and be a really great NFL player and a really big offensive weapon, right lining up across from Larry Fitzgerald, and that could be excellent for the Arizona Cardinals. But then on the other side, you have a first-round draft pick. He's going to be making a lot of money this year, and you give somebody who's already had some trouble in their life, and you give them a lot of money in the NFL, that could really go wrong for them at the same time. So this is a risky pick, in my opinion, for the Arizona Cardinals. There's no doubt, talent-wise, great player, but when it comes down to personal life, this could be very risky for them.
And up next, we have the St. Louis Rams on the clock making their selection. Just before we go to the front desk, guys, a few predictions. What do you see the St. Louis Rams doing here?
No idea. Absolutely. I mean, it was supposed to plan was Justin Blackman, but Jaguars made the move, and then they made their subsequent, I guess, plan B or C. They could go Kendall Wright here. They could go on the defensive end. They need it. Pretty much anything they get at this point will help them.
Honestly, moving back to the big board here, it is really tough to see what the Rams are going to do here because, first of all, we thought they were going to come in at number 6. First of all, they actually started at number 2, traded that one to the Redskins quite a while ago. So we knew they weren't going number 2 today, but then we thought they were going to be at this number 6 spot. We thought they could have taken anyone from Trent Richardson, Matt Kalil, Justin Blackman, Morris Claiborne. We thought any of those guys could have been on the St. Louis Rams next year. Now looking down this board, for the average NFL fan, most of us don't know the names that are going off the board right now. So we honestly have no idea what the Rams are thinking moving down to this 14th pick. 15th pick.
A lot of holes to fill. Certainly can't go wrong, especially with names, big names still on the board at both defense and offense. So, guys, we'll send it back to you.
Stretch it out. Keep talking.
And we are here as the Rams are set to make their pick, and Will Dyche here from St. Louis. And while trading down is never a terrible thing, I really think the Rams painted themselves into a corner. They traded down. Michael Floyd going to Arizona absolutely kills them. They needed something on the playmaker side. A receiver would have been perfect. And I think they ran the risk and ultimately got bit by trading down too far. A team that won 2 games last year, no real elite playmakers left in this draft to take. They trade all the way down and get burned.
It certainly doesn't surprise me that the Rams have gotten themselves in this position. Trading down, not the ideal type of thing that they wanted to do. Like you said, Michael Floyd was the only really big wide receiver left that they really needed. And sitting at number 6 where they originally traded to was the prime position for them. They could have picked Justin Blackman. They could have gone with Morris Claiborne. They could have gone with Melvin Ingram. They could have gone anywhere. And now with no one really left to fill their needs, it seems like it's going to be another disappointing type of draft for the Rams. Now, with that being said, there's definitely by no means, to write them off yet. There's still a couple decent players out there on the wide receiver end. They're definitely on the Melvin Ingram hasn't gone yet, so they could probably pick him up. Yeah. He's a little bit. They don't really need him. They have that position filled.
but definitely not a good position where the Rams are in right now.
No, and you almost get the sense that Justin Blackman going to
once
Jacksonville
we
really
get
killed them,
this
because they
section,
probably wouldn't have traded out of the number 6 spot unless, if he was still there, they would have taken him. I also want to shift gears. Teams that tend to trade down and have success are the teams that already have that core in place. So I don't know if the Rams were in position to do that. Their pick is in. We're waiting for their selection. But for the St. Louis Rams, a team that has struggled mightily, a team that's going under the ownership issues that they're having, the stadium issues that they're having, how much does putting a product on the field that excites the fans play into it, meaning guys that people want to pay and come to see?
Well, with a team like this, you got to be able to get somebody who can sell tickets, and you got to get somebody who can put wins on the board. And you can't do that if you trade down so much and you don't get that star player, somebody to back up Steven Jackson, or to give Sam Bradford something to throw to, or to play some good defense. The Rams were, I think, 30th in the league in defense and for points allowed, and 31st or almost dead last in points being scored. So on the offense and defensive sides, 2-14 in the last year, and we say this every year, a rebuilding year. Well, fans are getting tired of it, organization members are getting tired of it, and it starts with this draft, and it's really, I guess, unfortunate to see that the Rams have not been able to pick up that star player.
Yeah, owner Stan Kroenke not doing the fans any favors, selling the home game against the Patriots to London, so that'll be a game that I know people in this town would have liked to see the New England Patriots come to town. That is not the case, as we still wait for their draft pick, but I agree with what you said. The fans are just getting tired of it. There is rebuilding. There's rebuilding by trading down, but this is a team that habitually makes mistakes, that habitually trades down and doesn't trade or create picks with value. So I think this could be another long season. And some of the best prospects here, defensive end, defensive tackle, hybrid, they've addressed those needs in the past. So it's almost like beating a dead horse. That is their strength. So you got to have a sense that maybe that they were bombarded by what happened. They weren't fully prepared. I'm not sure. But we'll go back to the main desk. Will Starnes and Willie McKenna. St. Louis Rams on the clock, and not making any friends just yet. We'll see who the pick is, Willie, of the St. Louis Rams.
Thank you, Mitch. And before we go ahead and announce the pick, which it looks like we're getting word right now. Michael Brockers, the pick for the Rams. Before we go ahead and talk about him a whole lot, I want to talk a little bit about the Rams just in general. And coming into this draft today, the Rams really had a whole lot of talk around them, as there were Steven Jackson trade talks swirling. And I know, Will, you keep up with the Rams a little bit. What did you think about these talks coming into the draft of Steven Jackson wanting to renegotiate his contract? He's been here. He was drafted in 2004 by the St. Louis Rams, their first overall pick in 2004. He's been there his entire career and has been one of the most productive running backs in the entire NFL. So what do you think going into this year of the Rams talking about trade talks with him?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd take those too seriously quite yet. With those just coming up in the past few days, I look at that as more of bait, seeing, maybe if someone's going to throw the house for Steven Jackson, see what they could possibly get. He's getting up there in running back age, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that they want to move him. But
well, and like we were talking about, he is already into his 8th season. Typical running back lifespan's 3 years now, so he's well beyond that running back lifespan.
Yeah, I don't think they're too seriously looking into it, but you never can rule out anything. If someone wants to give you more than what he's worth, then you're going to take it. There's no reason with the draft coming, get a bunch of picks for him. There's no reason not to pull the trigger.
I also want to talk a little bit about, Mitch mentioned the Rams having a game in London for the next 3 seasons now. And I don't want to start any rumors or anything like that, but is there a sense with Rams fans around St. Louis, a little bit of a conspiracy theory now, where it seems like the Rams are almost just packing their bags up and ready to head out to L.A., as it seems like they're really just selling off everything here in St. Louis. And I think that this is just evidence of it right now, seeing the Rams drop all the way down from an initial second pick and now all the way down to 16. Do you think there's any of that going on in the Rams organization, maybe trying to not get the fans to show up next season?
I'm not so sure about that. The picks or their trades at the time made sense. One with Washington, they got a ton for that. You know, that was a good trade. This last one, questionable. I think they thought Floyd was going to be there for him. It didn't end up working out. But the whole London thing, I don't know. That is a little weird. That points me to more that they might be moving, not really the trades of the picks. But St. Louis Rams fans should be a little concerned, I think.
Well, fellow NFC West contenders, the Seattle Seahawks, their selection is in, so we're going to go ahead and throw it over to the green screen where we have Mitch Michaels and Will Deichler. They're going to talk about the Seattle Seahawks and their pick of Bruce Irvin.
Yeah, we're here live at this nice green screen, this spacious studio, kind of flexing out a little bit. But Bruce Irvin taken by the Seattle Seahawks at the 15th pick. And this is a value pick for sure. Now, he's a little bit of a prospect, Will. He wasn't a top-rated guy. But they did trade down, so in a sense, they got a guy that was intriguing without having to pay him the money at the pick that they were allotted. So for Seattle, a team that might not have been the greatest team in the league, but their division kept them in it all year, they try to improve with Bruce Irvin. Your thoughts on this pick?
Well, it's definitely an interesting pick, Mitch, is where the Seattle Seahawks want to go. They definitely need some help on the defensive side. Again, sitting in the NFC West, one of the worst divisions in football at the moment, and really trying to transition into that defensive side. And I think it's an interesting pick, and we'll see where it goes for them in the future. Hopefully they did the right move by trading down and passing on. Still, Melvin Ingram has not been picked, and that is very surprising if you're following this draft and if you follow NFL coverage. Probably one of the best defensive players still available in the draft.
They take Irvin. They pass on some project. If they're going to take a project, see, I got to question this move. If you're going to take somebody with a lot of upside, why not take Quentin Coples from North Carolina? Why not take Whitney Marsalis from Illinois? The knock on Marsalis being that he only had 1 year, but he had 16 sacks, and he's a freak in the combine, in the weight room. He's a big prospect there. But Seattle makes an interesting choice. Pete Carroll, is known for this. He's reached it in the past, but we'll see if it works out there. They're a team that is a little upset that Tannehill went to the Dolphins. I'm sure they would love to have him at that 15 spot, which is why I was a little, still surprised that not surprised they traded down, but they could have traded down a little bit further, gotten some more value picks there. Coming up next, the 16th pick, the New York Jets, New York Football Jets. Well, this is a team that has been writing a lot of checks recently that their playing hasn't been able to cash. They got some needs. They got some new faces in town, as we all know. But this is a team that has playoff caliber, contending talent, but has been able to put together. What do they need to address with the 16th pick?
Well, every year they're expected to go to the AFC Championship or win the Super Bowl. Rex Ryan still hasn't been able to quite pull that off, and in the offseason making some pretty good acquisitions. Maybe not so much with Tim Tebow. We'll see where he fits in the season, but they got to address something on the offensive side. Got to give something Mark Sanchez to throw to. I would expect the wide receiver to be drafted. Not too many star wide receivers left to be picked. With that being said, maybe go on the defensive side. Maybe pick a player up like Melvin Ingram on the defensive end, or definitely maybe an outside or an inside linebacker to try to get some more pass rush in. Yeah,
this seems like a defensive pick based on what's available for the Jets. Rex Ryan's a defensive guy. They had trouble stopping the run last year. They had a really good secondary, but their run defense was subpar. And I expect either Ingram or another guy to look at is Upshaw out of Alabama. He's had himself a good career. They could go with a reach from Marcellus as well, but this is a team, a position to look at for the Jets. After them, we'll have the Cincinnati Bengals picking. And before we get to the Jets and what their pick is, as their clock is under 3.5 minutes, the Bengals, an interesting team, will 2 picks in the next 5 selections. After this, 17 and 21. What do you think they'll address with a young quarterback, a young receiver, and a defense that made some strides last year toward the end of the season?
Well, I think they got to go with somebody on the defensive side. Really bolster that on the defensive side as well. And like you said, young quarterback, give something him to throw to. Maybe, like I said, there's not too many wide receivers to go with. So it's really going to be interesting. It's with this small margin of difference in the pick selection, though, it's going to define how their draft goes, and it's really going to shake it up. I would expect them maybe to make a trade maybe here and there, depending on what this next pick is. So it's going to be interesting. But we're going to switch it on over to the War Room, send it over to Willie McKenna and Aaron Berg. They're going to break down some players of who to get and who's still left.
And we're back in the War Room. Willie McKenna, Peter Graff, Aaron Berg. Guys, looking at these last few picks, it really confuses me. I'm confused. The Rams taking Michael Brockers, the Seahawks taking the Eagles pick. Seahawks going with Bruce Irvin, a guy not even in the top 3 or 4 picks in a lot of mock drafts around. Why would you take? Let's start with the Seahawks. Why take Bruce Irvin here when you have guys like Kendall Wright still available at receiver, still Melvin Ingram at outside linebacker? Why Bruce Irvin right now?
Well, I guess the Seahawks and Pete Carroll have a vision, and then that Bruce Irvin can help fill that vision. Good guy, smart, cerebral guy. I like the cerebral guys. You know how I do. Yeah, but there are so many better prospects ahead. This could be a value pick, or this could be a guy. This could be a pick that could be like, you pass on this, and this guy.
Well, is it really hard to say that Bruce Irvin could have been sitting there in the second round when the Eagles picked, though?
Absolutely. Or the Seattle.
Or, excuse me, Seattle, when they come up with their next pick?
Bizarre pick, in my opinion. I mean, he's a good guy, but bizarre pick. Even more bizarre is the Rams, the 4th team pick, going with a defensive tackle from
Well, and see, I think this Rams pick is more confusing because the Seahawks don't need quite as much. I keep saying Eagles here. We got 2 bird teams. Seattle doesn't need quite as much offensive help as the Rams do, where the Rams could have gotten help from Kendall Wright out of Baylor. So I find this is an absolutely mind-boggling pick by the Rams. But this is crazy as well. Seattle, Bruce Irvin. But they don't need as much offensive help. But they could have gone without Melvin Ingram at the outside linebacker position.
There's a lot of picks that they could have gone with, but.
And I completely agree, guys. I really think it is a mishap for them to miss out on Kendall Wright, the talented receiver from Baylor. And as we currently get the Jets pick in right now, but as I was saying on that note, Kendall Wright just had great hands. Another guy I really believe is NFL ready. It could come in, especially with a Seahawks team, that could help them right away. So I really think they dropped the ball in this one, taking Bruce Irvin, who I don't think he's NFL ready quite yet. So I think he's a project you have to work with. So I really think they made a mistake taking this, really baffling the minds of many mock draft analysis across the country.
Many fans for both sides. Well, we'll be here in the War Room looking at everything, crossing off the players and seeing who remains, but we send it back to the main desk. We'll be here next time.
Thanks, guys. And the Jets pick is in. We're waiting for the announcement momentarily. Mitch Michaels, Will Starnes here, and Will, the Jets may have lucked into a great blue chip prospect at 16 without even having to make a trade.
Yeah,
we got him.
For all the Jets fans out there, they've really lucked into Melvin Ingram, if that is indeed their pick, which I would expect it to be. They're in desperate need of a pass rusher. You know, and he's just a perfect fit for the Rex Ryan defense, and it's wow, I'm surprised that he's lasted this long.
Absolutely. Still waiting an announcement there. While we're waiting for that, Floyd's off the board, Blackman's off the board for receivers. This is, in my opinion, the most intriguing position in this draft in the early rounds. Still some good names out there, Kendall Wright, Stephen Hill, to name a few. You've got Ruben Randall from LSU, Alshon Jeffrey from South Carolina. Which one of these teams coming up in the draft do you think is going to take a chance on a receiver, or who needs to take a chance on a receiver, as the Jets take Quentin Coples out of North Carolina, so they pass on Ingram. He's still available. They take Quentin Coples. We'll get to that momentarily, but to answer the question, well, who do you think is going to need to take a chance at a receiver?
You know, to be honest, I don't know if there's another receiver coming off the board in the first round. A lot of these teams picking late, receiver not their biggest need. Maybe the Broncos.
And I could see the Browns as well at 22 taking a receiver there.
The Browns and the Broncos are the 2 teams I look for to maybe go for one. But I feel like they'd be reaching for a receiver at those positions with the caliber of receivers that are left. So I don't know that that's really the pick to be made right there.
One guy to consider is Kendall Wright as well. Well, Will Dychley will break down this pick by the green screen. The New York Jets taking Quentin Coples.
Well, a bit of a surprising pick here, guys, as Quentin Coples being taken by the New York Jets. Not what we've would have suspected, though, with should have been Melvin Ingram. But Quentin Coples is a type of player who's very versatile. He's able to play in the 4-3 or the 3-4 scheme. He's 6'6", 284, so he's very, very strong. He's got a huge arm span as well, and he's just able to really put control in the position that he's playing, and he's very fast as well. He's able to get past those defenders and really rush the passer very nicely, which is something you don't see a lot of in this league right now. It's more of along the offensive side. It's more who can score the most points. So a bit of a surprising pick coming out of North Carolina, but he has played 3 years already. He's played in a variety of roles, and really a bold pick in my mind by Rex Ryan and the New York Jets.
I'm joining Will here over by the green screen, and now the Bengals are on the clock, Chargers to follow them. But as we look at these two teams and some of the positional needs, one of the positions that hasn't been attacked as we thought it would be, linemen, specifically tackles, but also guards. You got guys like Riley Reiff, Cordy Glenn available at the tackle position. David DeCastro from Stanford, a junior guard, the top guard on the board, still there. When do you think these linemen will start flying off the board, and who do you think needs them coming up?
Well, I expect these linemen to be flying off the board probably in the next couple of picks or so, maybe 16 to 24, 16 to 23, and you expect maybe the Bengals to pick up one. The Bears obviously will need one, and going down the list, I mean, maybe not too many players, or too many teams will want these guys, but they'll definitely fit the positions or definitely fit the situations that these teams will need. Tennessee obviously in contention for one of those guys, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple rounds.
I think starting with Cincinnati, they'll look for a lineman. The interesting guy still on the board, Drake Kirkpatrick, cornerback from Alabama. The third-rated cornerback, the top two are gone. When will he go? I'm thinking Cincinnati's second pick, 21. If not sooner, I don't think he makes it past 21. Being a standout cornerback is all right.
No, I agree with you, Mitch. I think he's actually going to go with the next pick in the 17th pick, what the Bengals have now. I think he's the type of player who he's very, very fast, but their secondary is, I guess, less than good with this. So I expect him to go in the next pick as well. And then for their second pick, the Bengals to pick up the guard out of Stanford, David DeCastro, as well. It can be interchangeable as well. They can flip-flop, go 17 or go 21. But I'd expect these two players to go to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Certainly something to consider, although if they pass on one, there's no guarantee that it won't get scooped up in the middle. The Cincinnati Bengals on the clock, 2 of the next 4 picks. We're going to go to the war room, get some thoughts. No, we're not going to go to the war room. We're going to take a quick break from there. We'll stay right here. And the receiver position, as I mentioned with Will Starnes at the desk, is interesting because you have prospects that are maybe not guaranteed. Kendall Wright, a lot of knocks on him is that he's undersized and he didn't have the fastest 40. What position is he going to play with his size, a slot receiver that isn't quite fast? Or, another guy, Stephen Hill, who is a burner who runs 4.3 speed, but played at Georgia Tech, didn't have the numbers there. That may have been because of the triple option offense, but a guy with question marks, much like Denario Thomas had when he was drafted. We'll get the thoughts on the war room right now with Aaron Burge and Peter Graff as they discuss some potential picks with the Bengals pick momentarily coming in. And
we're actually going to go to a quick break here. Don't go anywhere. This is
Don't go anywhere.
SLU-TV and KSLU Sports. We'll be
We're
back
doing
in just
great for the first hour and a half, so thank you. Welcome back to SLU-TV's coverage of the 2012 NFL Draft. I'm Mitch Michaels, as we're bringing you live coverage of what has already been a wild first round. The Cincinnati Bengals on the clock with the 17th overall pick. They take Kirkpatrick out of Alabama, the third cornerback taken in the draft by Maurice Claiborne at the sixth selection, and Stephon Gilmore, who was taken high as well. We're going to go right by the Buffalo Bills at the number 10 overall pick. We're going to go right to the war room with Will Starnes and Peter Graff. Kirkpatrick goes to the Bengals. They wanted him. Thought he might be there at 21 guys, but at the end of the day, couldn't take that chance, take him at 17.
They absolutely could not. They are in a tough division where they see the Ravens and the Steelers 2 times a year, once both at their home court. They have been stacking up their secondary for the past couple of months. They picked up Terrence Newman, cut from the Cowboys, and now with the overall 17th pick, they take Kirkpatrick. Great defensive guy. Alabama always produces great defensive guys. I really like the pick. Shore up that backside, shore up that secondary. You can't get burned by the Mike Wallaces, the Anquan Boldens. Can't have that happen in that division. And, you know, with Trent Richardson to the Browns now, got to make sure that you can do a little bit of the attack, the run, and a little bit of the pass.
Yeah, I really like the pick. When you bring in a cornerback like Kirkpatrick, you really can focus more attention on your front seven, blitz a little more. Just gives you an overall better defense. He's a good player, coming out of a great school, produces a lot of NFL talent. Nick Saban knows what he's doing down there. I really like the pick. Yeah, I think they could have gone tackle. I think they could have gone Riley Reiff out of Iowa, but they had to make sure they got their guy, and Kirkpatrick clearly was their guy.
Absolutely. And they still have a pick at number 21. So whatever, Chargers, Bears, Titans, they probably have limited needs. So I don't know what these 3 picks will be very interesting. It will determine 21 down as we're heading into the backside of the draft. We send it back to the main desk from out of the war room. Tell us what's happening with the Chargers pick, guys.
Chargers pick is in. We're waiting for that to be named. But just to bring everyone up to speed, Cincinnati Bengals, 17th pick, Kirkpatrick. We've already had several trades in the first round, none bigger than the Dallas Cowboys going after LSU cornerback Maurice Claiborne. They traded with the St. Louis Rams, who incidentally may or may not be today's losers when it's all said and done in the first round of the draft. They trade down but don't end up with the elite prospect they sorely needed. With the pick in, we're going to go over to Will Starnes and Will Deichley by the green screen. The San Diego Chargers, a team that's perennially in the playoffs, haven't had success. 18th overall, what are they looking to draft?
Well, like we said, Kirkpatrick being taken by the Cincinnati Bengals, and now up next is the San Diego Chargers. And when you look at the San Diego Chargers and their needs, who most likely fits the bill with the pick they're going to come up and make?
Yeah, I really see them taking Whitney Merciless here. He's a great player. He plays the end, but he's also versatile. You could play him at the outside linebacker position.
I'll do that.
6'3", very quick off the ball, great on the line. But in the NFL, because he's a little smaller, I think they could move him to outside linebacker. But he's a good guy to have because you could play him at both positions. And it's a good add to a very successful team to the Chargers.
Yeah, definitely. Marsalis is a very fast and athletic player. He doesn't have too much experience, though, playing in the starting position. It'll be interesting to see how he fits in and sort of meshes with the experienced and the more veteran players in there as well. Going next over to pick after the Chargers, we're still waiting for that pick. For the San Diego Chargers, it's going to be interesting. There's not many big prospects left on the board. Melvin Ingram is still on the board, and I'm not sure why he hasn't been picked as of yet. The Chicago Bears pick after the San Diego Chargers. Aaron, what do you think the Chicago Bears need to address in this draft?
Chicago Bears have a lot of holes in their team. I mean, they're a pretty average team. Jay Cutler still trying to get the offensive worked out in that situation. They have great running back in Matt Forte. So they're pretty set on offense, but they still have some key holes to address that their offensive line and defensive line both could use a boost. So I could really see them taking, as Mike Mayock of NFL.com reports, I also agree with him, Chandler Jones at defensive end from Syracuse. Jones, Great player at defensive end. And like I said, they have holes to fill. They have Julius Peppers. But playing alongside Julius Peppers, and another situation where Peppers, a veteran leader, may take Jones, if they take him, under his wing and show him the ropes and guide him to a successful NFL career.
Yeah, definitely. The Bears are very successful and very consistent on the defensive side. And with Jones, he's he's sort of an undersized player, but he's very strong and he's able to play the position fairly well. So we're still waiting on the pick for the San Diego Chargers. The Bears, a lot of defensive players still available in this draft. So we'll send it over to Mitch Michaels, so we'll give his a little bit of insight as we wait for the San Diego Chargers selection.
Pick is coming as the commissioner is walking to the podium right now. One thing to point out about the Chargers, they significantly have great team offense and defense, but for whatever reason missing the intangibles. They've been high on team offense and defense throughout the years. Chargers selection is in, and they've taken Melvin Ingram, so they take what could be the steal of the draft for how far he's slipped all the way down to them at number 18. We'll send it to the war room. I'll stay on a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of a corner screen here. I'm staying and ask you guys some questions. There I am in the top left corner. Okay, Peter and Will. Ingram goes to the Chargers. Clearly, it seems like it's a good pick, but guys, how much of a chip on his shoulder will Melvin Ingram have going into the season? This was a guy projected to be no later than about 11 or 12, as high as 7, falls down to 18. How motivated is he going to be to play football this season for the San Diego Chargers?
Has just entered into a great place, and these guys have a lot to prove. The Chargers have so much to prove after a lackluster season they had last year. He is the best offensive lineman prospect available in this draft. Like Pick, they need to protect their running backs, particularly. They need to protect their young guys. They need to protect Phil Rivers. That's what they need to do. They need.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that entirely. Sorry for blocking out the first half side of your draft board there. But San Diego Chargers take him. Now the Bears are on the clock. A lot of things that they could do. There's still some great prospects, specifically, Will, on the line. Riley Reiff's still there. David DeCastro there. Do you think the Bears need to make that pick, take a lineman to protect Jay Cutler? We've seen and heard about all the woes he's had with not getting protected in the past couple of years.
You know, I think that'd be a nice pick for them, but I'm not sure it's necessarily the pick that they need to make. A guy that I like for the Bears to possibly take is maybe go the tight end route with Kobe Fleener out of Stanford. You know, do a little blocking in there too, but he can also help them out in the passing game. You know, they just got rid of Greg Olsen last year's offseason, and now with Mike Martz out as offensive coordinator, the tight end comes back more into play. So I like the Stanford tight end. I think he's a better overall player, but Riley Reiff definitely a good player they could go with as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think line and tight end. Also can't forget about Kendall Wright, Baylor receiver. I wouldn't rule out a receiver to come in and play slot. I know they have Brandon Marshall, but get a receiver to come in. Devin Hester can assume more natural roles at kick returner where he's definitely better suited. The pick is in. And one final question for the war room guys. As we get down to the later rounds, do you expect to see trades pick up, slow down, stay about the same? It's been pretty entertaining to say the least with the trades early on. Peter, what do you think about the trades? Will the frequency continue to increase?
We all know that the Patriots love to trade down, so I'm expecting a little bit of the same, but you never know what could happen. This draft's been a curveball so far, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Certainly is. The pick is in, and want to thank the War Room for their contributions. We'll be right back with them. Before we send it over to the green screen and a breakdown of the upcoming pick, it is the Bears on the clock, the Titans after them, a team that just missed out on the playoffs last year, has a good base in place, would have liked to take cornerback, might be in the odd man out there, followed by the Bengals again, the Browns, and the Detroit Lions. So some interesting picks coming up on the horizon. And we'll kick it over now to the green screen. The Chicago Bears on the clock. Is line the issue? We pose it to the war room. Is offensive line the issue? Or are they going to look for adding a complementary piece to Jay Cutler and an offense that is quietly getting better and better?
draft for these guys. It's really something to protect Jay Cutler as much as he can. And as we saw last season, he took quite a number of hits and getting sacked quite a number of times. So their defense is fairly consistent at the moment. I think this would be a perfect position for David DeCastro to be drafted out of the guard out of Stanford. Originally predicted to go to the Cincinnati Bengals, but I think this would suit the Chicago Bears a little bit more. What do you think, Aaron?
I completely agree. DeCastro is a powerful guard out of Stanford. He protected Andrew Luck, and #1 pick of the draft today. And I think Jay Cutler, his main issue is he doesn't have protection. Their offensive line has been aging for years. It's a very old line. The Olin Krutz lost their retirement. So they really need to revamp that offensive line. And DeCastro is the guy you need. He's played against great competition at Stanford. He played on a great team. He knows the offense. He's a great player. And just a good complementary player. And the main thing, again, that the Bears need is protection. And DeCastro is the guy that can bring it to you.
And the pick is actually defensive end Sean McClellin. And that is a very, very surprising pick as the Bears do decide to go with the defensive player, deciding to go against Chandler Jones or even a defensive end like Whitney Marsalis. We'll send it back over to Mitch Michaels. He'll give us our insight, and we'll send it back over there.
Yeah, Sean McCullough, a interesting selection for this team. And you got to consider, there are still plenty of good prospects out at that position at defensive end. One thing that you got to give the Bears some credit, he's more of a traditional player. Whitney Marsalis, Courtney Upshaw, you're not sure what you're going to get out of them. Marsalis is maybe a bit of a project, had one great year. Upshaw was a guy that played defensive end. You're not sure if that's going to be his position at the next level. There's a scheme thing as well. So with that, the Bears throwing people for a loop making that selection. We are going to send it over back to the war room and discuss now the Tennessee Titans, what they do. A team that is a couple of players away from really being a force again. The AFC South, a division that has a changing of the guard taking place. The Colts rebuilding, Texans having a good year. What do the Titans need to do to reestablish themselves as a premier team in that division?
The divisions that these times are wide open. They can make picks right now. They can impact them in the future. You have Matt Hasselbeck. You also have the future in Jake Locker. Got Chris Johnson. You have your wide receivers in Britt and Washington. I think you go with a guard here. Asheville's still on the board. I also like Corey Fleener because I think he's very undervalued. But pretty much at this point, you have to give offensive weapons at this point. I think your defense is fine. Maybe they go cornerback to replace Cortland Finnegan. Could very well go down to Jake Gilmore of Alabama. Who knows?
I want to ask you guys a question real quick. Kobe Fleener is the only real elite prospect in the first round. Does the tight end position, does that value in first round picks kind of fall with the recent success of later round tight ends? Gronkowski didn't go in the first round last year. You've seen guys like Antonio Gates go lower. Really, the only big time tight end in recent memory that I can think of that's been a dominant beast was a guy like Tony Gonzalez or Heath Miller for the Steelers. Does the position by itself of that nature really take away from teams wanting to take high tight ends?
Not really. If you see it, the elite prospect, you go for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this thing is the tight end position lately out of college has not been as dominant as it has in the past. You know, you're seeing a lot more spread offense in college, so it's more quick receivers, not really tight end a major focus. So, you know, it's just the development of the game is what's really caused, I think, the loss of the tight end in the draft lately. But you know, when you got a guy like Kobe Fleener, he played in a pro-style offense. He knows how to block. He knows how to receive. He can do a lot for your team. And you know, with the Titans picking, they've got a young quarterback, Jake Locker, waiting to take the reins. You need a tight end can be that security blanket for him and really help his progress along as he develops in his game.
Absolutely. They can also, another great security blanket, how about an Iron Tank protecting him? Riley Reiff is still on the board. Guys like Cordy Glenn from Georgia. There's so many options that they can go here right now with good prospects. The way crazy draft has happened right now. They can go any way they want, which is a great pick, definitely when you're sitting in the 20th spot.
Yeah, and just one thing I'd say with the Titans, with Mike Munchak now as their head coach, he's going to get that offensive line going. He's a former, all-pro offensive lineman himself. He knows what he's doing. I don't think they really need to go that way. He can develop some of the later talent and to make them into better talent, NFL talent. So I really think they need to go skill or playmakers right now to really help them take that next step.
All right, well, we'll send it back to the main desk to give you the pick for the Tennessee Titans.
The pick is almost in. Thank you for sticking with us on our draft coverage. I would like to thank everyone in the production room for increasing the entertainment value of this show in the last couple of minutes. It's really picked up steam in our second, approaching our third hour of NFL draft coverage with the Tennessee Titans on the clock. And once again, the Titans are a team that just missed out on the playoffs last year, finished with a record of 8-8, missing out by one game from the playoffs. A division that's in a transitional mode with the Texans assuming the role of top team last year and winning the division. They're getting ready to pick some of the names they would have liked to take. Kirkpatrick, Stephon Gilmore, a cornerback. They're off the board. They could have taken Poe from Memphis as a project pick late, but he surprisingly has been taken. There's some interesting options there. I look at them to take a defensive end pass rusher to bolster their defense. But again, Titans pick at 20, Bengals at 21, Browns 22, and Lions at 23. Before we get into the playoff teams, some real good picks about to be made here on NFL Draft Night 1, the first round on Thursday. We're going to go to the green screen. We are going to go to the green screen with Will Dicey and Aaron Burke.
Welcome over to the green screen, and Tennessee Titans pick is still being waited on. We would expect them to go with what Mitch was talking about with a defensive pass rusher, but you can't put it past them to go with a wide receiver, maybe like Stephen Hill, somebody out of Georgia Tech who can be pretty tall wide receiver, pretty fast. Aaron, what do you think the Titans need to address in this draft, especially this upcoming pick?
Now, I really think they need Stephen Hill would be a great pick. He's a good receiver, got good hands on a Georgia Tech, so I really see them going receiver and trying to bolster that offense a bit more. I think they're another team they're an average team going 8-8, but still have a lot of holes to fill. So I really see them taking Stephen Hill, trying to help Matt Hasselbeck out. And the thing we have to remember though, Matt Hasselbeck needs all the help he can get. He's a year older. He's reaching the tail end of his career, and he needs a good receiving core. And that's how you can just revamp that receiving core, taking Stephen Hill with number 20 pick.
Yeah, with that being said, though, Matt Hasselbeck needs all the help he can get, so he wouldn't put it past him to also maybe draft an offensive lineman or a guard like David DeCastro, guard out of Stanford, protected Andrew Luck for numerous amounts of years. Very good players. So Titans have a wide variety of choices to go. They can go on the offensive side with the wide receiver standpoint. They can go with the guard standpoint, David DeCastro. They can go with the defensive side. With a lot of defensive players, so it's really interesting to see how they're going to go. They're still waiting on the pick. They're obviously taking their time with this one. We're going to shoot it over to Mitch Michaels now. He's going to give us some insight on this upcoming pick.
Still waiting on the pick, but it's also worth noting that the Tennessee Titans are going through their own transition. Jake Locker played in a couple games last year and did fairly well. I expect him to be the starter by the end of this season. He showed promise. He's a young guy. But in that same sense, I agree with you guys. I think it will be offensive line that they address based on what is presented, what's at stake still in the draft. Titans are getting ready to make their selection. Do they select somebody to protect their young or veteran quarterback, whoever they start the season with, or do they select a defensive player? We're waiting on that announcement momentarily. Roger Goodell at the podium getting ready to announce it, and they have selected Kendall Wright of Baylor. So they go with a wide receiver, an interesting choice. Not, I guess, prototypical as we cut away to the war room. Pete and Will, they're going to go with Kendall Wright. An interesting choice given the circumstances. Is this a reach for Kendall Wright, 20 overall, and how will he fit in the Tennessee Titans system?
This is a very weird pick to me. They already have good wide receivers. They also have some good tight ends. I didn't think they would actually go with a pick like this, and he was predicted to fall all the way to 30 30, if not lower. A very weird pick to me. This is a reach by far. He is the third best in the draft class for wide receivers, but I still feel like it is a reach. There's a lot of other better players I think they could have used to help defend Jake Locker in the future and then help Matt Hasselbeck in the immediate future.
Yeah, Kendall Wright, he benefited greatly from having Robert Griffin III as his quarterback. I don't really know about this pick. I see a big bust potential here. But it is a position where they could use a little help. I mean, they've got Kenny Britt, but they could always add another receiver in there. You can never have too many skill positions. Help out that young quarterback, Jake Locker. Get a team ready for when he's ready to take over.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see. We also have recent insider info, that the Patriots have traded with the Bengals to get the 21st pick, and they might be going to.
That's a very interesting development. The Patriots trading with the Cincinnati Bengals to, take that pick. And guys, I gotta wonder here, talking with you in the war room, Kendall Wright going at 20 overall. Is that a sign that they maybe don't have complete confidence in Kenny Britt? He's done a great job of making plays, but he's got in some trouble. He hasn't been healthy. What does this move say about the Tennessee Titans' faith in their current receiving corps?
Well, whenever a team drafts at a position, a player's position, that's trouble. And for the wide receiving corps, for the Titans, I would be worried right now. But Kenny Britt with the health and like you said, and you're about to say?
I don't think it's too much of a threat to Kenny Britt. He knows he's the #1 receiver. He's put up huge numbers for them. I think it's more of a sign, their second, third receivers, or their jobs possibly at risk. Kenny Britt, I think, is fine. And it never hurts to have that receiver in case, he is not the same Kenny Britt coming off that injury. But as of now, I wouldn't look too far into it in Kenny Britt's status right now.
Yeah, I would not. And now we send it back to the main desk to talk about the 21st pick of the NFL draft.
Yes, the Patriots have traded with the Cincinnati Bengals. That trade is in. The Patriots at 21 overall. Now we'll pick for Cincinnati at Cincinnati's spot, 21 overall. And you got to wonder what they're targeting. A team that likes to trade down, likes to stockpile picks. And now they are going to be picking from 21 overall. Interesting selections there. They could go with a pass rusher. Brasilia's still on the board. They got some options there. Chandler Jones was a guy that showed promise. If they're going to go secondary, now this is a name I think is very interesting. Cornerback, it would be the 4th cornerback in the draft, Janoris Jenkins from North Alabama, previously at Florida. The reason I bring that name up, Patriots have a huge need at the cornerback position. And a guy with character issues that they're not quite sure of, that has Patriots written all over it. Better than any team in the NFL, they're able to take a guy with flaws and get the best out of him. So is that the selection? I'm not saying that, but it could be something of that nature. So we'll go to the green screen, Aaron Burge, and we're going to actually we're going to go to Will Dichley at the green screen, flying solo for a quick minute. Will.
Welcome over to the green screen. Thanks, Mitch. Just catching you up, though, the pick, Mitch will join us, actually. The pick is in now for the New England Patriots. They're taking Chandler Jones, the defensive end, and a bit of a surprising pick. Like we said, they could have gone with the offensive side, but choosing to go with the defensive end out of Syracuse. And let's break it down here, Mitch. Chandler Jones, 6'5", 247 overall. He's a bit of an undersized player as far as weight goes with the defensive end side. But is this a good pick for the New England Patriots?
The Patriots are a team that drafts not only by need but by their packages. Chandler Jones is a guy that has all the tools to be a great player. But in certain systems, I have no doubt he'd flounder. So I think this is a guy that they see great things for in their system. There's other guys in here, Courtney Upshaw, Whitney Merciless, that could potentially have greater careers. But his size, his raw athleticism is very wrong. But a team like New England, they run a lot of packages, they don't rely on everybody in particular. So we're giving a live shout of our war room right now. Is there
power on and use this.
I would agree.
Back to what you were saying. No, I think Chandler Jones is a stud that is athleticism ability, but can he translate that to on the field? I'm not sure. The Patriots, though, always have a plan. They went after a guy that they can step in right away. It's a good value pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely, Mitch. Now, the pick just being come in by the Cleveland Browns. They do select the quarterback Brandon Weeden out of Oklahoma State of the Big 12 division. This is a very interesting pick here, Mitch, as the Browns electing to go with the quarterback, other than maybe, say, an offensive tackle or a defensive side. Let's kick it over now to the war room and let Will Starnes and Aaron Berg break this pick down, as we are all in chat.
Yes. I'm over here.
Let me see Weeden get taken off the board now. I, for one, am pretty surprised. I'm really surprised to still see DeCastro still on board. Guys, also, like, you're having late in the first round, going should be shocked. So, I'm really surprised with this pick.
I think this is the steal of the draft right here, to be honest. Brandon Weeden, to me, is by far the most accurate quarterback in this draft. More accurate than Luck, more accurate than Griffin. I've never seen some of the throws that he's made. He's just incredible. And I think this does kind of show a little concern for Colt McCoy, but I think it's a really good pick for the Browns.
Maybe it's still no. I agree with that. He's very accurate, a good player, but the only thing I see is some of these guys who are still on here are pretty big names. We still have some linemen who are often too ignored in drafts, and I think that's where you need to go. But they have needs at quarterback, and they'll take Weeden at quarterback. So not a bad selection for him, but in my opinion, just should have looked towards the line, which is often too ignored. But for the Browns, it's Brandon Weeden. Guys, we'll go back to you.
With the main desk.
Welcome back over to the main desk. A bit of a shocker here as the Cleveland Browns decide to go with Brandon Weeden. And we're going into the draft now where the playoff teams are starting to pick it up and starting to make their draft picks alongside Peter Graff here. Peter, going into these later parts of the draft, first of all, let's talk about Brandon Weeden and how big of a shock was this type of pick at this time.
Absolutely shocked. Colt McCoy should be scared for his life right now, man. I tell you what. I thought someone was going to pick Brandon Weeden in the second round, let him fall, but obviously the Browns saw something immediate in that they loved about him. At this point, I thought they were going to go with a wide receiver, maybe. I don't know. The wide receiving core is definitely depleted, but the Browns have definitely now have Brandon Weeden and Trent Richardson as a combo in the future. Maybe they let Colt McCoy sit for a year. I have no idea. This is an absolutely shocking pick. This is definitely something that will affect the draft from here on out.
Yeah, definitely a young lineup is what they're aiming for here. Potentially maybe the 1-2 starters there with Trent Richardson and Brandon Weeden.
I wouldn't say Brandon Weeden is that young.
Well, in the future, potentially could be trying to move this organization into the right direction. The Detroit Lions are up next, and looking at them, they have a variety of picks they can go through. They need help on the defensive side. Peter, what do you expect them to? Who do they expect them to pick?
They are one or two picks away from being a Super Bowl contender. They need to protect Matthew Stafford, offensive linemen, offensive and defensive linemen, outside linebackers, things like that. They're still on the board. They could add someone like Reiff from Iowa. They are great players across the board that they can pick up good young prospects because they've been adding to the defense for a while. I think that is what they need to do. They need to go defense, someone to add to the pass rush, or protect their young quarterback.
I can't agree with you more there, as they did just sign Calvin Johnson to a new contract. And it's been an interesting draft so far, and really interesting to see how these players have come and gone. Big surprises here and there with Brandon Weeden and as well. So we'll send it over now to Mitch Michaels as he'll give us his breakdown on the draft.
Welcome back. Different sport there. Welcome back to my take now on the Brandon Weeden selection. Number 22 overall. The Cleveland Browns were going to take a quarterback in this draft. There was no doubt about that. They could not go into the season with Colt McCoy and Seneca Wallace, who may or may not be there, as their only quarterbacks. Weeden at 22 is very, very interesting. I'm intrigued by this pick because I think he can come in and play right away. He can take Colt McCoy's job right away. McCoy shouldn't be scared. Weeden is going to compete for the job. I think he's got more talent than Ryan Tannehill does. There's always going to be doubts. He'll be 29 years old on the day the season starts. So that's going to be an interesting thing to look out for. But I like this pick. The reason why, it says to the Browns fans, we're not trying to just do nothing. We want to compete. They know they have to put someone behind center. Brandon Weeden at the very least will be able to compete with Colt McCoy and compete for the job. Now this pick is going to get a lot of flack from some Brown supporters and say they should have taken a receiver or maybe a guard. They truly believe in him. You can get 6 or 7 quality years out of Brandon Weeden. The Detroit Lions pick is in, and we're going to turn it over now back to the main desk. Back to the main desk with Peter and Will.
Thanks, Mitch. And we're still waiting on the Detroit Lions pick. Like you said, though, a wide variety of things to go with here, and definitely something to watch out for is that a lot of these picks could be traded here and in and here and out. And the Lions selection is in at the moment, so just a few seconds away from that. But you expect them to go with maybe somebody on the offensive tackle side to protect Matthew Stafford, or on the defensive end to get some pass rush in. And like Peter said, definitely a couple picks away from being Super Bowl contenders.
Absolutely.
And the pick is in. We're still waiting for official confirmation.
From the Calvin Johnson, a.k.a. Megatron.
Yeah, it looks like Calvin Johnson is essentially supporting this pick, but we'll send it. We'll send it over to the war room as the pick is in, and it's Riley Reiff, the offensive tackle now, and that's an expected pick. Somebody to protect Matthew Stafford. Is the Big Ten Iowa offensive tackle. So we'll send it over to the war room for Will Starnes, Aaron Berg, and Mitch Michaels to break down this pick.
And as we see, the Detroit Lions select Riley Reiff with the pick. What's your take on Reiff?
Yeah, I think it's a good overall pick. It's a safe pick. It's a guy that they're going to be able to put in right away, which is what you want out of your first-round pick. He's going to be able to come in, play, protect Matthew Stafford, which he's shown he's injury-prone. Last year being really his only year of his career that he didn't suffer a major injury. So I think it's a good safe pick. I think they could have used some defense, but also a safe pick.
I completely agree because looking at who's left, I'm really surprised to see Whitney Merciless still on the board at this point. A guy that really should be taken by them. They have Ndamukong Suh, and I really see him as a guy to complement Suh if they were taking Merciless. But Reiff, not a bad pick. A sack machine, just a great guy to have. Or excuse me, for at offensive line, just great player out there for the Detroit Lions. So, Mitch, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, welcome back into the
welcome back, Mitch Michaels.
The microphones are all good, and we're all good to go here. But I think that's a great pick. I think they needed to protect him. That's one of the needs that they had. Peter mentioned they're a couple picks away. He's probably the best available player on the board. He was a tackle that could have gone top 10, slipped all the way down to the 20s. It was a good value pick for them. And something also to consider, if you look at what's still available, the strength areas, Detroit Lions' interior line is pretty good. They have Nick Fairley, they have Ndamukong Suh. They're doing pretty well there. As we look now with the Steelers, the pick is already in, and we will send it back over to the main desk to break this news on an historic night here at the SLU-TV studios.
Thanks very much, Mitch. And the next pick in the NFL draft is in with the Pittsburgh Steelers taking the guard David DeCastro out of Stanford. That's a pretty good pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we sort of expected them to go with that. DeCastro, a very polished guard, protecting Andrew Luck for quite a bit. Peter, what do you think of this pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers?
The picks are coming in hot and fast. We just saw, I like the pick to help protect Ben Roethlisberger, older, getting more injury prone. And now we just saw the Broncos and the Patriots just swap picks. They just traded picks. So actually, the Patriots are up next. They move up again. What a crazy night for the Patriots, who historically sit back and trade back from picks. And the Patriots selection is coming up very soon. But I like David DeCastro. You need to protect Ben Roethlisberger. The main reason why they lost last year was injuries, and an injury to halfway Ben Roethlisberger, half healthy Ben Roethlisberger is never a good thing. And now we see the Patriots about to select as the picture is coming in and out, flying throughout on this crazy historic night.
Yeah, the Patriots select inside linebacker Donta Hightower out of Alabama, the SEC, and this is quite an interesting pick by the Patriots. A lot of trades in this draft have already traded up now a good 2 or 3 times, and really seeing something in Hightower, really seeing something in this draft, trying to snag him earlier than anyone else. So we'll set it over now to Mitch Michaels, and he'll break down this pick.
Hightower going to the Pittsburgh Steelers is quite the draft selection. It's a great pick. Let me tell you about that selection. I'll walk over here. Hightower getting selected. I like this pick for a lot of reasons. The Patriots needed to address some defensive concerns. They were getting older at that position. But I didn't think that Hightower would go ahead of his former teammate from Alabama, inside pass rusher, Courtney Upshaw. He's a guy that I thought Pittsburgh would nab up at 23. But for Hightower to go there, and for once again the Patriots to trade up for a guy that may or may not have been there, tells me that they were certain that he was the guy that they wanted. They didn't want to risk anybody else getting him. Hightower's a guy I saw going later in the round, maybe even to New England where they originally selected. It was a solid pick. And something to consider also as we move along with that trade. The Houston Texans up at 26. They were a team in the Kendall Wright sweepstakes. They didn't select him. Now runs the question of, do they still go receiver Stephen Hill, or do they try to address another team, possibly make a trade? The picks are flying in faster than our cameras can keep up with us. And that's not a knock on us. This is just a historic night. It's almost like the Gold Rush version of the NFL draft. As everyone's just trying to claim their players, it's a phenomenal night tonight. The Houston Texans on the clock will send it to, who's ready? The War Room. You're definitely going to send it to the War Room to get their take on this historic night. The Houston Texans on the clock. But before that, guys, the Patriots making a trade to get another player that is high risk, high reward.
Yeah, Patriots, I was back in the War Room, ladies and gentlemen. Patriots move up. Very crazy, very unusual of them. But now we have the Texans on the clock. Team that's competing for their divisional title, something that they want badly. Where do you see the Texans going?
The Texans, to me, are a very interesting team because they've given away a lot of talent this offseason via trade, letting Mario Williams go in free agency. So I think they need to do a little work on the defense. Maybe a Courtney Upshaw out of Alabama. I think they can slide to a outside linebacker in a 3-4 that they run. Outside linebackers left. I'm not real high on Levante David out of Nebraska, so I don't know if they go that route. But I think they definitely need to do a little something on defense. Maybe the inside linebacker, Michael Kendricks out of Cal. But I would really like to see them take Upshaw out of Alabama.
I think Upshaw would be a great pick at 26. He was predicted around here, around 27-ish, so it wouldn't be too crazy. Texans, Wade Phillips was that great defense that everyone loves. And now we send it back to the main desk to give you, as the Texans are about to pick.
Welcome back to the main studio. Thanks, guys. We're just trying to figure out who's left and who's available for this upcoming pick. And the Houston Texans are on the clock now, joined alongside Aaron Berg. Aaron, Houston Texans had a really good season last year, going to the playoffs for the first time in quite a while. I think actually the first time in franchise history.
Yeah, first franchise.
What do you expect them to pick up in this draft with this upcoming pick?
A lot of the scouts are saying Fleener is a good pick, and that would be a good pick, but they have Owen Daniels at tight end, and the thing is that they don't need him. I mean, he is, if you want, there's two types of styles in a draft. You can either draft the best available or you can draft for needs. And depending on what style you like, you could take Fleener if you like the best available. But for me, if I was a GM of the Texans, I would look at Harrison Smith out of Notre Dame. Harrison Smith, free safety out of Notre Dame, just a powerful guy, just 6'2" frame, pretty average build, but he's a great tackler, great vision too for a free safety. So in that situation, because the Texans have the tight end spot filled already, I think they should bypass Fleener and go with Harrison Smith.
Yeah, I can agree with you with that one, Aaron. He's such an athletic and smart player. He approaches the game in a very methodical way. The 4-year starter and senior captain for Notre Dame, so he definitely brings a lot of leadership qualities to this team. Whether or not the Houston Texans will take him is yet to be determined. So we're still waiting for that pick to come in, and the pick finally did come in, and it is defensive tackle Whitney Marsalis, the defensive tackle out of Illinois. And this is a pretty good pick. They were expecting him to pick on something on the defensive side, as Whitney Marsalis is the pick out of Illinois. So we'll send it over to Mitch Michaels now, and he'll break down this pick. Go, Mitch.
Thank you for that warm introduction. Whitney Marsalis is a selection at number 27 overall. We're going to break him down and more, but we are going to take our final break of the evening. Only a couple more picks left. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us here on SLU-TV's coverage of the NFL Draft.
He's everywhere.
What?
Welcome back to SLU-TV's coverage of the 2012 NFL Draft. Will Dodgley alongside Peter Graff here. Just catching you up recently on some activity. The Houston Texans just recently picked. They picked Whitney Marsalis, the defensive end. Interesting pick out of there. Very strong defensive end. Needs some help on the defensive side as well. Now we're getting into the portion of the draft where a lot of the playoff teams are starting to pick now. Peter, looking at this draft and who is available and who's still left, who do you think with the next pick the Cincinnati Bengals should go to, and who do you think would be the best pick for them?
Someone needs to pick Courtney Upshaw. He has a lot of upside. I know he's falling in this draft. People thinking they can get him in the second round, but I like his talent. Those Alabama boys know how to play football.
Yes, they certainly do. Is the Bengals looking to bounce back after somewhat of a mediocre season last year? So we'll. I mean, not the best of seasons, I guess, making the playoffs, but getting knocked out in the first round there. But we'll send it over now to Mitch Michaels and Aaron Berg as they'll break down this upcoming pick by the Cincinnati Bengals and give us their thoughts.
Bengals selection is up. Bengals selection is on its way. As Roger Goodell watched the podium, I like the pick. Just to recap it, Illinois defense, so it's a good pick for them. Bengals selection is up. If you're getting word, Roger Goodell making the announcement. Cincinnati Bengals at 27 have selected Kevin Zeitler, a lineman. With the notes here out of Wisconsin, so a guard, second guard off the big board after David DeCastro and Aaron. You can't ever really fault taking a lineman that's highly regarded like the Bengals did. You also get the sense that they wanted a lineman, they wanted him, they were able to trade down and still get a good pick.
Yeah, I really think late in the first round, that's where you got to go. And like I said before, find our guys that we don't like.
Hey, John.
Glamour positions like wide receivers and running backs and guys like that really can make up a solid attacking team. And picking him up is great. Zeitler is great talent. You got to have. He's not quite NFL ready yet, but he doesn't need. In this situation, he comes in the Bengals, and I think give him 2 or 3 years, he's going to come out, he's going to shine for the offensive line. And the Bengals are actually a team on the rise, so I really think that this is a safe pick for them because it'll do wonders years down the road when they
Certainly. And before we cut it over to the war room, let's get our thoughts on we're getting later in the draft, only a couple selections left in the first round here. A risky pick, someone that would be dangerous but could pay dividends in the later rounds. Who was your dangerous pick?
Well, looking at it, I see one still on Penn State is one of the riskier picks. He's defensive tackle, Richardson senior. He's older. He's 6'5", 3 foot, so he's got good size. But I can see him not really living up to the potential, and I can really see that. Putting stock in the fact that he's from Penn State coming off that shaky season really not living up to the hype. So I see him as kind of overrated for him, and I can see him coming in and not really feeling what risk out city.
Right, now look at Zach Brown out of UNC, Janoris Jenkins out of Florida. Either of them are surefire picks, but I think Janoris Jenkins could really be a playmaker in the quarterback position. Going now to the war room with our crew of analysts in there. It's confusing to manage who's in there at any given time, but the war room, you guys have done a great job breaking down the last picks and also rounding out. We're getting into heavy hitters now, the Titans of the NFL, the big boys. Who's going to be the next to come off that board?
All right. Packers need defense. They just actually released their longtime safety Nick Collins, neck injuries and things like that, similar to Peyton Manning. So that we could see someone go after a Harrison Smith. You never know what they're going to do. They need defense because their defense was subpar last year.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure necessarily where they're going to go on defense. They've got a lot of holes to fill on that defensive side. Maybe a corner, but I don't really see a first-round talent there. Maybe that last real strong safety, like you said, Harrison Smith. Courtney Upshaw, again, still there. Just really, what I seem to think is top 15 talent that could be taken right now. So I look for them definitely defense. My pick would be Courtney Upshaw.
That is some good picks. What about, I already know what the Ravens are going to do. I feel like they're going to get the only true center in this draft, Peter Kantz.
Yeah, the Ravens, they could go definitely offensive line. It never hurts to go there. They're also aging on defense. Maybe some secondary help. If Harrison Smith's still there, maybe they're to shore up an older defense. They got a lot of options, not too many holes to fill on that team.
Definitely. And then we get down to Denver and the Giants. Who knows what Denver will do? I'm sorry?
And the 49ers picking right after the Ravens. Where do you think they need to go? They've got questionable play at quarterback with Alex Smith. Better than he's been in the past last year, but can you really count on that?
All the good quarterbacks have been taken off the board. I've heard Stephen Hill maybe as at number 30. Who knows? They might do something with defense because that was the backbone of their play last year.
Yeah, I'd like either offensive line or that Stephen Hill pick from Georgia Tech. I think he's got a lot of potential, and they could really use some help on their wide receiver core. Michael Crabtree, really not the player that everyone thought he was going to be. Still has some time, but I like Stephen Hill out of Georgia Tech.
I do too. We send you back to the main desk as the Packers pick is about to be announced.
Welcome back over to
This is
the
not the
green
main desk.
screen.
And we'll send it to the green screen right now as
We're at
Bill
the green
Dychley
screen.
and Michaels will take over.
Will Dychley. And this is an interesting selection, certainly, for the Green Bay Packers, a team that had a disappointing second round exit, their first playoff game at home, losing the eventual Super Bowl champion Giants. Packers selection being made, and they have decided to take
defensive end Nick Perry. That another defensive selection. That one, he is out of USC, so another USC defensive player taken in this NFL draft. Interesting draft to your choice, Mitch, as the Packers electing to go with the defensive side, and it was really an issue for them throughout the later parts of the season and going into the playoffs, letting up a good margin of points. How do you think this pick is?
Well, they couldn't get any pressure on Eli Manning in the playoff game. You saw that. He was able to pick him apart. I think it's a good pick by position. You wonder why they didn't go after Upshaw, but I think this is more of a traditional pick. He's a traditional DN. He fits in their system nicely. I think Perry's going to be able to come in and contribute. They're pretty deep across the board, one of the deepest franchises in the NFL. But I like the addition of another big body that can get after the quarterback. We're starting to see those teams reach, as players start to fall, it gets less and less likely that these mock drafts and experts get every pick right. Because you're starting to see teams reach, you're starting to see needs addressed over the best player. Moving on to the Ravens, and a franchise that maybe they take the center out of Boston College, maybe they address defense again. A lot of interesting things to consider. A team that's so close to getting over the hump and being a champion, but so close yet so far. How do you see Baltimore picking their
Well, actually, it looks like there was a trade made. The Minnesota Vikings trade Baltimore trade with the Minnesota Vikings. So the Minnesota Vikings attempting to bolster their squad some more here in the first round is a bit of a surprising trade, as the Baltimore elects to not go within the first round. So we'll wait on the pick for the Minnesota Vikings. We'll send it now over to the War Room with Peter Graff and Will Starnes as they'll break down who's available and who's the pick.
All right, so we're back at the War Room. Crazy, insane trade. What we gave our predictions that the Ravens would do, but we did not predict, or very few people predicted, that they would trade their first-round pick. Vikings have another pick. They went with Matt Kalil. What do they do now in the later rounds?
I think they could really use a receiver to help kind of improve that offense. Percy Harvin not really turning into a real solid number one receiver. He's more of a slot. So Stephen Hill might make sense here. Big body, tall, fast. He has the potential to be that number one receiver that they've been looking for ever since they lost to New Rice.
Yeah, there's a lot of value picks here. Still got Courtney Upshaw on the board. Still got Terrell Worthy from Michigan State. Floyd Fleenberg. You know, Vishante Sanko, what is he going to do next year? He was productive the year before, but not a lot this year. Got Peter Krantz. There's a lot of value picks here at 29. I'm surprised that the Ravens moved back in the second round for this pick.
Yeah, very, very surprised that the Ravens moved out of this one. I mean, like I said earlier, they don't have that many holes to really fill, so it makes sense. But really, with the value that's still here, I think they could have stayed here and gotten some depth to their team.
Absolutely crazy pick. We'll send it back to Mitch as he is ready to give us the green screen. We'll send it back to the green screen where we'll break down what the Vikings can do with this pick.
Welcome back over to the green screen. Thanks, Peter. Just catching you up, the Minnesota Vikings making a trade with the Baltimore Ravens for the 29th pick. And still a little bit of players still left on the board. I'd expect them to... They got Matt Kalil, an offensive tackle, so they're pretty much set at that position for the draft. And so I expect them to maybe go with a defensive tackle or a defensive lineman. Somebody on the defensive side really didn't sit very well last season, finishing very low for points allowed. So it'd be interesting to see who they go with. The pick is still waiting. Unfortunate for them that Nick Perry was drafted by the Packers in the previous pick. As we'll welcome on Mitch Michaels now as he is back. Mitch, looking at the players left in this draft, the Minnesota Vikings needs, who do they need to draft to fit their needs?
Well, I think Stephen Hill makes the most sense. They're a team that could use a weapon at the receiver position. They don't have a lot of playmakers outside of Adrian Peterson. You don't know about Percy Harvin's health. Why not get a guy like Hill later in the rounds, get a value pick to go along with the offensive lineman you had in the previous round? Defensively, I think their interiors are actually pretty good. I think their secondary let them down, and I keep harping on it, but if they're going to take a chance, you should take Jenkins, the cornerback. If they're going to go with somebody there, he's the only option, I think, right now at this late in the first round, but it is a risk. We're seeing what the pick is momentarily.
We're still waiting on the pick. It is just now come in, and they have taken free safety Harrison Smith. The Minnesota Vikings have just selected Harrison Smith, the free safety. As this is a good pick, I guess. Another defensive need for the Minnesota Vikings, and see where it goes for them.
Yeah, their secondary was abysmal last year. If you recall, Tim Tebow's best game as a pro was against the Minnesota Vikings, and some pretty bad blown coverages in that game. You like the adjustments that they made. You like the fact that Minnesota is willing to address needs. Not a bad first round. Maybe could have been better depending on how you want to look at it, but they come away with a solid safety. The only question I have is Harrison Smith a result of a weak position? Did he get overvalued because there's not many safeties?
And we look at it,
who may have been overvalued.
Yeah, and you get Matt Kalil, very strong pick in the offensive side, but now you go with Harrison Smith, who has questionable, I guess, terms with the man-to-man coverage. How important is it for him to, I guess, work on that part of his game for man-to-man coverage, especially in a league that's dominantly controlled by man-to-man defense?
Well, it's going to be important. I don't think you'll see too much of it in the free safety position as opposed to Mark Barron at the strong safety position. He's a little bit faster. He's going to be able to help the run, and that's huge for them, is to have somebody to come up and make plays in the open field. But Harrison Smith goes to the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to go now to Aaron Berg on the platform. We'll rejoin the platform. Your thoughts on some interesting moves by the Minnesota Vikings, going with a safety who many suggested would not be in the first round.
You know, I really love this pick with Harrison Smith because
keep your hands off the table.
The Vikings have had trouble at defense for a couple of years with losing Pat Williams on the line. They still have Kevin Williams, but that Williams wall is breaking down, and now with the loss of Pat Williams. So the Vikings really need a strong safety to come in and do well for them. I find Harrison Smith a sleeper in this draft. A lot of people didn't have him going first round. So I really like this pick. I think he's going to revamp that defense that they really need. And also, they are pretty weak when you look at defensive backs.
That's a good point, Aaron. As I join you on a split screen, and Aaron, let's flip the script a little bit and talk about the other teams' roles in these trades. Baltimore, New England, they're trading out of picks. Do you agree with these decisions that they are good teams, are able to be all right as is? But do you agree with the decision to trade out by way of how they are, or by way of the prospects that are available?
I completely agree with you. You have Baltimore, New England, two franchises that they're pretty set with positions. You could bring in rookies that could come in and you could have for a couple of years, and maybe have a veteran going or one of the veterans' wings, learn the ropes. But I like the training on the picks because you don't need these guys, and you don't want to go through the hassle of trying to coach these guys when you're trying to win a championship. I think these guys, when you use more of the draft picks, are best suited for the struggling teams to take. So I like how they're trading with the Vikings, because the Patriots really don't want to deal with these young guys so much, and also the Ravens. They're set with the veterans they have.
Absolutely, and thank you for that good analysis of why teams are trading out. Let's go to the war room with Peter and Will. The San Francisco 49ers are on the clock. I would think they'd look receiver here, guys. A team that doesn't really have a lot of options, made a phenomenal run to the NFC Championship game, losing in overtime to the New York Giants. Stephen Hill's on the board. Do they take him, or do they go in a different direction?
Absolutely, they take Stephen Hill. They have really bolstered their wide receiving core. Randy Moss, that big red zone threat. Yeah, Mario Manningham, the guy that beat them in the NFC Championship game, and also had the heroic touchdown catch from Eli Manning to help steal the victory for them. Stephen Hill will help them out. So got Michael Crabtree, Vernon Davis, Frank Gore, Alex Smith coming into form. This offense is formidable. They can get some defensive picks there and stick out if they want. Still Courtney Upshaw on the board, boys and girls. You never know what they might do at this position.
Yeah, I like the pick, Stephen Hill. Randy Moss does not have that many years left in the tank. So you let Stephen Hill kind of learn how to play the position, learn how to run routes. And by the time Randy Moss is gone, hopefully with a successful trip in San Francisco, Stephen Hill will be ready to step in and really be a solid number two. I don't think he's ever going to be that number one, but I do see him being a solid number two receiver. And with where they're picking, I don't think that's really a bad pick for them.
Absolutely not. And then we send it over to the green with Will and Evan.
Thanks very much, Peter. And the pick is in now for the San Francisco 49ers. They go with the Illinois wide receiver A.J. Jenkins out of the Big Ten Conference of Illinois. Certainly something to offset recently acquired Mario Manningham from the New York Giants, and to give Alex Smith something more to throw to. Failing to acquire Peyton Manning obviously puts a bit of a situation for Alex Smith, but how big of a draft is this pick for the 49ers in this one?
Yeah, I agree with the fact that Randy Moss, they just signed him, but he's got pretty much a year, if that, left in the tank. He's older. He's lost a lot of his skill recently, and they have guys like Crabtree who are still kind of waiting for their superstar breakout season. But I really see Jenkins coming in, and not by no means is he going to dominate his first or even second season. I think he's a work in progress. But the thing I like about Jenkins is his quickness off the ball. He gets quick off the ball, gets open right away. He's a good guy to have on your team. And I think if they work with him and improve his catching ability a little more, with that quickness he shows, I think he's a star in the making 3 or 4 years down the road.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more there, Aaron. As he sits at 6 foot, 192 pounds, he's a pretty big deep threat as well, as he goes deep. So Alex Smith has got quite an arm. Give him a viable target down the road. As the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are next, as they do have a trade, a little bit of a three-way trade there from the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick are coming up next. Aaron, looking at this, who do you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need to pick up in this almost second to last pick of the first round?
Well, Buccaneers, I really think that going off of this, they need to. They have a lot of holes to fill. But I could see them going a lot of different ways with this. So they could go linemen, boosting that offensive line a little more. Defensive tackle, always a good guy to have, and they still have holes to fill on defense. You remember, Rondé Barber is older. They need to find someone to replace Barber. So if they can do that, they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I think so as well. Is coming off of a less than admirable season last year. So we'll switch it, I guess, over now to Mitch Michaels, who'll break down this recent pick by the San Francisco 49ers. Mitch?
Yes, thank you, Will. A.J. Jenkins is a quality receiver. Stephen Hill played at Georgia Tech and might be he's definitely faster. He makes plays, but at the same time, he played a triple option offense. His stats weren't up to par. The same question marks Demaryius Thomas had when he came out. San Francisco electing for another guy. And I'm going to disagree with some of the things that were said. I don't think Randy Moss has much of anything left in the tank. I think he's just about done at all. I don't know that he'll contribute at all. Mario Manningham was a good pickup, but they needed more at the receiver position. With Tampa Bay on the clock, they got a safety with their first pick. You expect them to make an upgrade maybe at the running back position. I wouldn't be surprised, to my fellow War Room gang over there as I get ready to segue to you guys. They have an early pick in the second round, but we're starting to get to that point where the other complementary running backs are going to start to come off the board. So Will and Peter and the gang in the War Room, do you think this is the time where we'll start to see some running backs come up? And if so, and at what point do you think, who will the first running back be taken in their late first, early second round? Going across the globe.
I like your idea, but I'll give you this. Well, Michael James with that 31st pick to the Bucs, he is an underrated running back. He's a little bit smaller, but he has the speed a little bit opposite of LeGarrette Blount. I like this dangerous pick. He's predicted to fall way into the 60th pick, but I like him right here, right now. What do you got?
I think the Buccaneers need to go a little defense here. With Courtney Upshaw still on the board, I really like them to go there. I think the running backs are going to hold off. The Giants maybe, depending on what the Bucs do. But if Courtney Upshaw is off the board, I think the Giants might take that next running back.
And guys, as far as Michael James is concerned, Peter, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think his size is going to prevent him from getting drafted until at least the late third, early fourth round. Whether or not he pans out to be better than the other running backs, I think is a moot point at this point. I think the next running back off this draft is probably going to be Doug Martin out of Boise State. I look for Tampa Bay to try to make a claim at him by their first pick in the second round at 37 overall.
It is absolutely possible. You never know what could happen. We could also see the Giants draft a running back because they let go of Brandon Jacobs in the offseason, two-time Super Bowl champion with them. You never know what they need someone to complement Ahmad Bradshaw in the run game. They were dead last year in the regular season. When it came to the run game, it finally picked up when it came to the postseason, helped them win that Super Bowl. But they need to help Eli Manning every way they can. I can't phonetically spell it out clearly.
Yeah, Eli really made great strides this past year. With the risky comments in the past offseasons, I knew he was an elite quarterback. Now he proved it for the past year. Now they need to keep building around him and have him keep flourishing as a leader of that offense.
All right, now we send it back to the main desk where the 31st pick will be coming in soon.
Roger Goodell makes his announcement that Tampa Bay Buccaneers are making their selection, second pick in the first round at 31 overall. The announcement is being made. They're going to take Doug Martin. So there you go, guys. Doug Martin, running back out of Boise State, the next running back off the board. They thought we thought he'd make a push for him in the second round. Doug Martin goes in the first round. Last year was a down year for running backs, not this year. Early draft pick Doug Martin out of Boise State goes to Tampa Bay to complement LeGarrette Blount. We'll go to the green screen, Will Dysley and Aaron Berg. And with all these segues, it's a good thing I don't have epilepsy, guys.
Where are we?
Green screen.
Still waiting.
Oh, There we go.
Thanks very much, Mitch. And Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Doug Martin, running back out of Boise State. A bit of an interesting pick in the fact that they already have LeGarrette Blount, starting running back through there. So, Aaron, what do you think this pick means for LeGarrette Blount and for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I'm really confused about this pick. I don't agree with it. And personally, I find a slap in the face to LeGarrette Blount. The great season that he had, I find
watching SLU-TV
I don't find them selecting a running back to be a good decision. It's just not needed. You know, they're fine at running back. And Martin is a guy who, while I don't see him coming in and being a star right away, he's right on the cusp of being a star. His only downsides is he's not very explosive, so he needs to get a little stronger. And he's a little guy. He's 5'9". But on the flip side of that, we've seen little guys come in. Adrian Peterson, for example, while he's got strength and power, he's way more powerful. He's short too. And Chris Johnson, another example of a short running back who comes in and dominates. So I would compare him to Chris Johnson, but give him maybe 2 or 3 years for Doug Martin, because while he's a little guy who needs to work on his explosiveness, we saw at Boise State, he's a very traditional style running back who can come in and do a good job. Just give him a couple years. But I'm just really confused by this when you have a superstar in LeGarrette Blount coming off a great season to take a running back and poses him as a threat to his starting running back position.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you that on there. And maybe they're looking to potentially offload LeGarrette Blount and give Doug Martin the starting position. I'm not really sure what their mindset is behind this pick, but
it's a very interesting pick.
Yeah, it's a very interesting pick, and don't get me wrong, Doug Martin is a good player. 1,300 yards, 16 touchdowns in the 2011 season for him, and he almost reminds me of, like you said, a Chris Johnson or even like a LaDainian Tomlinson type of player. Not very big, but very, very fast and very, I guess, agile, where you can move around the defensive tackles and everything like that.
Yeah, to me, he's a guy who he played at Boise State, so while they are a powerhouse, they're not elite like Alabama or LSU or teams like that. So that's why I see him kind of as a Chris Johnson in that he's being overlooked. Johnson was picked late in the first round in 2008, and he comes in and they give him 2 years, and he's a superstar. So, and a little guy at that. So that's why I would compare him to that. I don't think it's a bad pick per se. I just think it's interesting that you have a guy like LeGarrette Blount, and you're going to take Doug Martin to breathe down his neck and maybe take his starting job in the near future.
Yeah, definitely an interesting pick by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The New York Giants are on the clock now.
Your New York Giants.
My New York Giants coming off a very Cinderella-esque type of season, winning the Super Bowl, running through it. We'll switch it over now to the War Room with Mitch Michaels and Will Starnes break down the upcoming pick.
Yeah, I am everywhere here this evening, but we are now in the War Room. We have one pick left to go. And Will, if we look at this board, it's starting to make sense now why some of the teams made the moves that they did, at least from their perspective. Teams targeting certain players. The Giants are up. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. No real pressing, definite need, but some areas to improve. What position do you think they'll target?
At this point in the draft, I don't know if it's about really targeting that one position that you need. I see them going defense here. I really can't see them passing up a talent on defense like Courtney Upshaw. That's just the Giant kind of, mold, just to have that pass rusher, that tough physical guy that they can throw in there with their various packages on defense to really disrupt the quarterback.
Absolutely. And then if you look at some of the other positions that still have guys that haven't been taken as high as we thought, there's some good tackles out there. Mine not exactly a pressing need. Tackle position. Let's not forget about defensive tackles. Jarrell Worthy, Devin Still, some big guys as well. So there's still some picks out there. There's still first-round talent. There's an abundance of it left in this draft. And right now, we are going to segue it over to the main desk with Peter. And we will go to the main desk for his thoughts on what's been a wild and crazy day of the NFL draft. Take it away.
I'm here at the main desk, ranking solo. What has happened today with the draft and the ups and downs and everything. We've seen the Cowboys, we've seen the Redskins, we've seen the NFC East teams make aggressive moves, except with the exception of the Giants. People trading up and down, working. The draft is a chess match. It is a game of art. It's a game of science. It is alchemy at its best. You never know how these guys are going to pan out. Andrew Luck could be a total bust, and RG3 be amazing, and the same way around. Essentially, people are making moves that they believe that they are putting themselves in the best possible future. Brandon Weeden being drafted 22nd overall by the Browns. Draft is just an amazing time, and I send it over to the green screen with Will and Aaron.
Thank you very much, Peter. We're just seconds away from the New York Giants pick, and looking at this draft, been some pretty surprising picks, as Peter has said. So,
I just want to take a moment to really, as the Giants make their final selection to end the show and end the first round of the NFL draft. What are your impressions on the first round? What are your thoughts? Who's the winners and losers so far in the first round?
Well, I'm going to have to go saying the losers are the St. Louis Rams. They have not picked to the utmost of what they can do. It's, from my perspective, another disappointing draft from the St. Louis Rams. But the winners, you got to give it, I think, to either the Minnesota Vikings. They've done extremely well, or even the Dallas Cowboys in taking that enormous pick there. So Jerry Jones really showing a lot of, nerve or enthusiasm going to grab a player of that like. So we're just seconds away from the New York Giants pick, and Aaron, I guess I'll just flip the question and ask you the same thing. Who are your winners and losers in this draft?
Well, I'd have to agree. The Rams are my losers. I don't really understand their picks. Picking a defensive tackle that early in the draft is just a mistake. When you have so many other holes to fill with all the positions that they need, a defensive tackle isn't a guy who's going to come in and make a statement for your team, unless he's like Ndamukong Suh or anything. But we just didn't see that in this draft. So I was really confused by that pick, and I didn't like it. I think it kind of ruined the first draft for the first round in the draft for them. The winner, I really think, is the Washington Redskins picking Robert Griffin III. It was a no-brainer at number 2. They picked him, but I love that pick. I really think he's going to come in, and I compared him to Michael Vick in the beginning of the show. I think he's even a closer comparison to Cam Newton, too. He's the guy, he really starred his last year in college. Before that, he was good, but not really he wasn't elite. So he had the 1 year of being elite in college, and I really find him coming into the NFL and making a splash right away. I do think he's a lot of pressure coming off the lost season, the failed quarterback trials of Donovan McNabb and Rex Grossman. They tried out with John Beck and guys like that. They're just not doing much for them. So I really find the Washington Redskins to win it, as we'll swing over to Mitch Michaels on the podium. Mitch?
Yes, we will. The Giants making their final selection. And I can't make it out, so we'll go back to Will with the iPad.
The New York Giants do select the running back David Wilson out of Virginia Tech.
So 3 running backs in the first round, something that is kind of unprecedented. Sorry to cut you off there. I think
no,
it's still
okay,
on camera.
Mitch.
So I'll move one way or the other. But David Wilson's a quick running back, and that's 3 in the first round, kind of flipping the script as to what we've seen in the past. Running backs are, I don't think I'm I'm finally comfortable here. I think that's a good positional pick for the Giants. They lose, Brandon Jacobs in his drag racing escapades, and he's gone. So now they can adjust with a running back that doesn't have to come in and be the main guy, can supplement Ahmad Bradshaw. Peter, I'll kick it over to you, and I'll be on my way walking over to join you.
Excellent. What a draft! A crazy, insane first round. We've seen 3 running backs picked in the first round, like you said. But I mean, the moves that people have been making, whether it's move up or move down. We've seen the Patriots move up twice.
Absolutely.
Absolutely crazy. Like they were earlier were having their winners and losers of the draft. Who are your winners and losers of this first round of the draft?
I'm really intrigued by what the Browns did. I know I'm a little biased, but I think they got a quarterback that can compete, and they got a franchise running back. I agree Dallas is a winner. I think the Jets and Arizona both got extremely fortunate that prospects that they desired fell into their laps without having to move up. Losers, I hate to rain on their parade, but the St. Louis Rams yet again made out without one top flight prospect, which was hard to do considering they went 2-14 this season. Traded down twice, didn't get anything. You got to wonder about them. And Denver trading down was a little perplexing as well. So they're two teams that I have to consider.
Well, Denver will benefit greatly in free agency, but winners, definitely my Dallas Cowboys. They definitely ruled the dice, and I think they'll win big with Morris Claiborne, grade A cornerback prospect with Brandon Carr. I think he'll work well. I do agree with Cleveland. I think they're winners. I mean, the obvious loser is probably the Rams. They were at 2 and they picked 14 at one point. It's crazy.
Absolutely. We'll go to Will Dysley and Aaron Berg in the green screen. Let them recap the Giants pick and then also the green screen. And also, as they're on camera now, let them talk about, guys, your best available players left recapping a wild draft.
Thanks very much, Mitch. And let's go into this pick a little bit more about the running back, David Wilson, that the New York Giants just selected. Out of Virginia Tech of the ACC, running back position, a very much position that the Giants needed with Brandon Jacobs leaving. So analyzing his strengths, he's a very explosive player. He can accelerate very well off the ball and explode through those holes as well. Aaron, how important and how big of a player do you think this could be for the New York Giants?
I really like David Wilson as a pick. I'd compare him to probably a lesser skilled Adrian Peterson because, like you said, of his explosiveness. But I really think this is a big steal of the draft. He probably deserved to go a little bit lower for teams that need running backs, but also, and this is why this is great for the Giants, just making the Giants better, he also can play receiver. He's 5'10", and with his quickness, he's got speed, he's got great hands. So he's a guy you can put, especially after losing Manningham in the offseason, you can put him at receiver if he's not panning out at running back. Or he could run a bunch of different offensives. So you have options with this guy. You can put him at running back, and he could, if he flourishes at running back, you keep him at running back. He complements Ahmad Bradshaw. But either if he's not panning out at the running back position, can't get the job done, or you just want to try something different, put him at receiver because he has the skills to secretly do well at receiver. And so I like guys with options, especially with a team that lost a running back and a receiver. I really like this guy. I think he's a steal of the draft thus far.
Yeah, I think he's a very good player. One of his weaknesses, though, is that he is only 5'10". He's 206 pounds, so he's a very short, kind of a stocky player, but he's pretty fast off the ball as well. Be interesting to see how he transitions into this game and how he can adapt to the increase in physicality and speed to this game as well.
Well, we've seen guys come in, at 5'10", he is a little small at running back, but we've seen guys come in that have speed and the quickness factor and really use it to their advantage. So that's why I love this pick and think it's a great pick for the Super Bowl champs, the New York Giants.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he has a 41-inch vertical to say that. So, I mean, he can definitely
it's highly skilled player.
Definitely go up. He's very fundamentally sound as well. So that's going to wrap it up for us here at the green screen. We'll send it over to Mitch Michaels and Will Starnes to give us their final thoughts. Thanks very much for watching. Mitch, take it over.
A remarkable day, to say the least. And right now, guys, if you guys could all join us for one final shot here at the table while we go over some things. Just stand next to the table, kind of get a wide-angle shot of everybody, if we could. We'll spread it out a little bit. It was great coverage in today's show. I want to thank everybody out there. And before we go, one final question that I'd like to, each of you guys to chime in on. How important and valuable is it for the later rounds of this draft, rounds 2 to 7? A lot of talent, a lot of Hall of Famers came out of those rounds. How important is it for teams to still, do their homework and make some valuable picks going forward in the late rounds of the draft?
Well, I think it's entirely important, Mitch, that really the rounds 3 to 5 to even 6 is where your sleepers really come into play, and that's where you get your core solid players, defining your positions that you really need. Maybe not necessarily your all-star players or your best players, but take a look at Tom Brady, drafted 299th overall, the Mr. Irrelevant, and winning 3 championships, 3 NFL MVPs. So it's really these rounds 3 to 5 is where it really comes down, and you get your core solid group of players. So it's important for the teams to really keep going and draft well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The NFL draft is really interesting because you could, like you mentioned, Tom Brady and so many others who have grown to become just perennial all-stars in the NFL and done so well, have very bright futures. It's interesting because you read off their names and you read off the guys who were picked in the first round and before them who they don't make the cut. They could have a great career in college, but it doesn't transition into the NFL. So the first round, while it's important, while we see some terrific players, you can't ignore the other rounds of the draft because you may see tomorrow's Hall of Famers.
Yeah, this is where you really just got to look and find those gems. So many great players come out of these rounds. So many first-round players, they become busts. And then, you look every year, you have the people, oh, well, if we would have done this draft over again, who would have gone where? It's never the same as when it actually happens. So this is where you can really make your name, as a talent, or not developer, but finder, just where you can really make your name.
Yeah, and this is where teams are actually set the groundwork for the future. I mean, obviously, you pick star players like Andrew Luck or Robert Griffin III, who are the face of your franchise, but this is where teams pick the players that will really fill the positions that they really need and maybe be used as trade bait here and there, maybe later on. So it's really important, these rounds ongoing past the second and third round.
I agree with that. You got to do your homework. You got to buy into the player at that point. But a lot of fun still left to go on a wild night of NFL drafting. Well, a lot of people to thank. Everyone in the top left corner of your screen. I want to thank them, William McKenna, for keeping us on our toes and definitely making it exciting. I didn't know I became a member of the Ghost Brothers. Oh, we're on fire. Okay.
They're on fire. Their production staff want to thank them, and we are on fire as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you to all of them, everybody here, for doing a phenomenal job as well. For Aaron Berg, Will Deichley, Will Starnes, Peter Graff, I'm Mitch Michaels. Thanks for watching this live coverage of karate class of the NFL draft. I'm Mitch Michaels. Thank you, and be sure to tune in to the NFL draft all weekend. Who knows what your favorite team will decide. Thank you, and have a great evening. Go Bills.
Basketball. Wait, they're still on the air. We're still on the air.